Okay, so we are going to just jump straight into it at this point. Thank you guys so much for being as patient as you were. Obviously, the time got a little bit away from me, ended up a bit delayed getting back home. But even so, we've got a Rams breakdown to go through, and there is a lot to talk about here. And it stinks because sitting at 5-1, and I'm sure you guys had heard me talking about it. Pretty much everything on the offense that we were saying about things potentially getting better, there were always issues with the running game. There were becoming issues with the line in a hurry, but we were hoping that as Foles sat under center, things would slowly get a little better every time they played a game. And against Los Angeles, that couldn't have been more incorrect. And it's a huge bummer that we are where we are with this, but we've got a breakdown and we've got plenty to go through. And honestly, at this point, I'm just going to start. I want to go ahead and give a fair warning to everybody here that we're just going to do our best to go through and talk about the different problems in this offense, some coaching, some execution, which kind of ties to coaching, some personnel. I mean, there is so much to go through here, and I think, it's funny you ask that, Base, like, is it going to be painful? Maybe, but it's going to be painful in the sense that we're going to be talking about things that aren't holistically positive, but I'm sure that as we go through this, you're going to be thinking the same thing I am, which is, hey, at least we're talking about what you're seeing and going through it. Now, there are a lot of criticisms I have, but we'll get to them as we go. We will start, of course, at the start of the game, because why wouldn't we? Where the Bears decided that at some point they were going to, like, the first play of the game, what do we see? We see a run from David Montgomery as he is going to attack Aaron Donald's side directly, and the Bears don't get much. And I don't know what happened, so if you didn't know this, Matt Nagy must have realized that there was this new age attitude about running at Aaron Donald, that if you run straight at him, you can expose him in the run game. And I don't know why he decided that the Bears' offensive line was the right personnel to do that with, but they started out with what looks to me like an outside zone play, where they're just going to run outside zone and try to see if they can't take advantage of it. As you can see, everybody steps to their left, standard outside zone. Rashad Coward kind of seems to get caught back here as he tries to get to the second level. The tight ends actually execute a half-decent block, and then Aaron Donald does Aaron Donald things, kind of gets control of Charles Leno just a little bit. It looks like actually, Coward and Leno are doubling Aaron Donald. But either way, the Bears get 3 yards, and it could be worse, But yeah, it's not a great play. But even so, hey, you know what? The optimist here says that, the Bears are a throwing team. They're trying to establish the run, see if they can get something going. I don't blame them. You got to run to set up play action and try not to be one-dimensional with this Bears offense. At this moment, I remember thinking, okay, 3-yard run, we could do worse. Let's get to the next play. And then 2nd and 8, where it turns out that 3-yard run was actually a 2-yard run, and the Bears are sitting in 12 personnel, and here they are. I think they're about to run duo, which, if you remember from my Colts breakdown, is basically they're going to try to get a whole bunch of double teams going all across the offensive line. Let's see what they do and confirm. But either way, yeah, okay, so they're going to run duo, which is a double team here, a single block on the backside, and Jimmy Graham, of course, which, as you can see, Graham gets beat immediately by Leonard Floyd, and the Bears run on 2nd down to the tune of 1 yard, and things start to me at least, as an avid Bears fan, I start to say, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we doing? Because at this point now, we've run twice at Aaron Donald. It's gone almost exactly as well as you'd expect, with a Bears offensive line that's starting to call him a backup left guard is probably a bit kind in Rashad Coward. And here they come on 3rd and 7, trying to get all the yards at once through the air. And Foles does, if memory serves. They get a quick first down, and they keep going. But even so, the boat is already a little bit leaky, because the Bears like you guys know, and will cover it as we will, but there's one play in particular I'm basically waiting for. Because the Bears offense seems like it's moving-ish. Hey, it's a passing team, but it gains a first down through the air, as we would expect. And from here, they just keep trying to run the ball. And in this case, they throw it. Of course they do. But yeah, exactly, Alex. Coward is an awesome pet project. He's a great kind of guy to have on the practice squad. But we saw in 2019 what happens when he gets consistent starting reps. And the Bears offensive line, as somebody pointed out, it's actually not terrible protection to kick off the game, but it is going to get worse over time. Unfortunately, you can consider that a bit of a spoiler alert. Thanks so much, Base. But so this is where the problems start, right? Jermaine Ifedi gets tagged for a hold that I'll go ahead and wind us back, because the Bears had just taken advantage. Again, they're a passing team. They got yards through the air, where if you watch Jermaine Ifedi right here, he's going to hold Aaron Donald, which, hey, people hold Aaron Donald. And not to mention, offensive linemen are getting away with holds all over the league, so why wouldn't you? Where the Bears are going to get kicked back 10 yards. And you know what? It wouldn't have been a problem if things didn't transpire the way that they do. Where here's the first play I really want to dive into. Okay, so it's 2nd and 12, right? And the Bears would have gotten a first down had Ifedi's hold not counted, and that's not really important. I just point that out to say at least the offense felt like it was moving at this moment, and the Bears are going to try to get some quick yards on sort of a double action play. I'm sure somebody knows what the concept's actually called, but basically they're going to have Allen Robinson run about 6 yards and an out, and then they're going to have Cordero Patterson run a slant post looking thing. It's really more of a slant right behind him. The key here is that if Allen Robinson comes into the middle and cuts out like this, and this linebacker goes and follows him, then Robinson is covered, and you go back to Patterson, who on this slant is going to end up wide open. So, and yeah, the Rams logo does look like it's asleep. But so, as we take a look at this play, you guys are going to see what ultimately Foles sees. So let's see if we can't get to the snap right there. So this linebacker is motioning over, and as we can tell, Robinson is covered. So Foles looks back. He spots Patterson right here. Agree or not, he's open. And all he's got to do, because this defender is moving in this direction, this defender moving to his right, all he's got to do is keep going, and he's got a great lane for open space. But for some reason, Patterson stops right there as Foles throws it, and the ball ends up out in front of him. If you watch this in quick action, or whatever you call the opposite of slow motion, real time, I guess, you're going to see Patterson stops his feet as Foles tries to get that ball out in catchable range, and Patterson's not there for it because he slows his feet down to try to stop in a zone. Now, I went and did research just to make sure I knew what I was talking about as I went to break this play down. And apparently, according to absolutely any offensive coach, Foles is in the right here. So for what that's worth, you can tell anybody who argues with you that I told you so. Because this defender in particular is moving in this direction, this safety's too far out of the play. This guy doesn't matter because he's basically beat. The receiver needs to be running so that he can try to catch the ball, where, as you can see, he would have caught it about there or there, and see if he can run out the extra yard. The play call's actually fine, but the throw is fine, but the receiver basically doesn't run the right route because Cordero Patterson gets his assignment confused, decides he's going to sit down in a zone that he just doesn't need to be sitting down in. And of course, that pushes the Bears to a very early 3rd and 12, and they've already converted a 3rd and 7. They're pressing their luck to try to convert another one, and with the protection where it is, and frankly, as we can see, you can make a real argument that Patterson could have caught this anyways. We'll slow this down. This is the first time I've watched it from this angle in particular, but it seems like it does get to his hands, so Patterson even could have made a play on it there, but instead, oops. And Ian B, there is so much that you don't see on the broadcast. But so then, of course, the Bears go to 3rd and 12. They eat quick pressure. Foles does exactly what he's supposed to. I think the Rams, I think they're going to run no, okay. So the Rams run a 2-drop blitz where they basically send this linebacker right here. They're only rushing 4, but pressure comes fairly quickly from Massey's side, and Foles realizes he's got to get the ball out. He protects it like he's supposed to and distributes underneath for Patterson, who picks up 7 yards. Everybody wins on this play. That's something I love to say as I'm watching film, is everybody wins occasionally, where the defense stops them on 3rd down. The Bears get about 7 yards. If it was 2nd down, sometimes these plays happen anyways, but the Rams are basically guarding the sticks, and so they're able to stop the conversion. And what drives me a little crazy here is, of course, you're going to see this crop up, right? The Bears called a decent play here on 2nd and 12. It just wasn't executed well. And why wasn't it executed well? Well, sure, I could look you guys in the eyes and I could say, well, it's because Cordero Patterson doesn't know what he's doing. But also, and somebody asked this in the chat, and I want to point out that you're correct, why is Patterson this backside route? Like, you clearly know that it's a potential option on this play, so why not have Darnell Mooney do it? Why not have Anthony Miller do it? Why not even have Javon Wims run this route? Why is Patterson running this route? In theory, maybe it's because they want to get this dynamic athlete, because, hey, credit to Patterson. When the ball's in his hands, he can do some really cool things with it. Maybe they're trying to get him in that lane like we've talked about, with the ball in his hands and he's running in space. But it doesn't happen, and it partially doesn't happen because he misexecutes. And that's been a theme in this Matt Nagy offense, where even when the right call is sent into the offense, it doesn't get executed well, and it really starts to hurt the offense at, almost every drive. We talked about this a lot in Tampa Bay. We talked about how they kind of overcame it in Carolina. It's really starting to hurt the Bears, and here 4 weeks in, I was expecting things to get a little better. Now, one thing that, like you're saying, Kanger, Patterson's a great option to potentially clear defenders out and occasionally get the ball, but you almost get the impression that, man, they're giving them to him so often that, surprise, surprise, when he doesn't execute, it doesn't go well at all. So then, of course, we get to other issues with this Bears running game, the Bears' running game is a mess, and a lot of it's just Jimmy's and Joe's based on what I can tell, because there are some issues where you could make an argument here. It's tougher than you think, Beast, staying on top of the chat and everything. There's an argument to be made, and I've talked a lot about this on Twitter, and I don't want to harp on the guy because he's one of our better offensive players, for better or for worse. But one thing I have noticed Montgomery does a lot is that he'll take the safe option. There's nothing wrong with cutting this back up the middle, but it sure does look like, if you watch the edge of this play, that actually the Bears are going to get the look they want, where Graham is in space and could have potentially blocked number 22 over here. And if Montgomery had gone around the edge, Harris is actually holding that edge block pretty well. Leno's got enough control of his man, and with Graham one-on-one, I'm not about to pretend Graham is some superhero blocker, but I've seen a lot of commentary on how the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside. There is a degree of that's running back choice, and don't hear this offloading blame off of Matt Nagy. It's more that, hey, when Montgomery cuts it up the middle and we only get 3 yards, eventually, you better believe we're going to. We're gonna try to get to everything here. I really do think it does start to hurt the offense again a little bit, because one more time, if you watch this play, the best way I could put it is that Jordan Howard might actually run outside here. Like, I've watched a surprising amount of 2017 Jordan Howard to try to get a sense for what an outside zone runner should be, and there are plenty of times where Howard's angle is basically to go straight that way, and if he sees an opportunity to cut up the middle, he should. Montgomery instead basically goes almost directly off the handoff right up the gut, and the Bears don't get much, because if you take a look at this formation, because the Bears love running heavy sets, you're going to see that they're actually outnumbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Forget what I said. They're a hat on a hat. That's a learning experience. But so when the safety crashes down, maybe they're one-on-one. But instead, basically, they're forced to all hit a perfect man-on-man block. And because Montgomery takes this inside, Graham, who's free over here, can't get on his man. And not to mention that this backside double team doesn't get the man free to block the linebacker. Neither here nor there. There are a lot of problems with the running game. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure either that he'd be able to break out at the edge, but that's maybe a speed issue. There's, again, quite a bit to talk about here. But so then on the second down play, they run a pass play and so this is where Harris drops it. And I'm sure we all saw this. And this is where, again, you start to look back at execution issues. And if I say execution issues again, don't hear this as Roberts blaming the players and trying to absolve the coach. Matt Nagy is reportedly incredibly detail-oriented, and yet this Bears team for the last 2 years seems incapable of executing simple assignments, catching the football when it comes to them in plenty of cases, like we saw with Patterson, misreading routes and coverages, and ultimately they end up, you said it well, Ian B., it's everything. Mike, the throw is where you'd ask for it to be, and it could have been a first down, but instead you end up on a 3rd and 7, and the Rams right here, what you're about to see is that they actually roll into like a coverage flat sort of look. Me and a friend of mine couldn't figure out what coverage this was because Jalen Ramsey just trails Allen Robinson. It almost looks like Ramsey makes some kind of a mistake, but either way, this defender gets a head start to come into this flat zone as Foles reads that Robinson isn't open, and because of this space that's vacated, he's going to throw it to Patterson, and because he throws it to Patterson, he leads him right into the rolling defender, and he makes a play. Why do I point this out in this case? It's because there are going to be moments where, especially with a Bears offense that isn't just overflowing with talent, a good defensive play call is going to shut down what might have been a decent offensive play. You have to hit that 2nd and 7 catch, and that, in this case, is on Demetrius Harris. And what you're talking about, AJ, we will get there. And it might have been sky coverage. Honestly, Blaine, I'm still learning a lot of like the intricacies of defensive coverage. I know a little more about offense than I do about defense, and that may very well have been sky. So I I wish I could tell you, but either way, it's another failed conversion. So then the Bears go and they finally get this one to Kmet, and we'll speed up here in a little bit, but I do want to give Cole Kmet credit because, honestly, what's funny about this play is Cole Kmet doesn't actually create a ton of space if you watch him down on the sidelines, but he makes a nice contested catch anyways, even though Foles is getting hit at the time, which I point out because Foles gets hit a lot in a Bears uniform. But so Cole Kmet, who's got pretty solid straight line speed, doesn't necessarily separate from the linebacker, but credit to Foles, he does what he does. He gives his guy a chance, and Cole Kmet comes down with a very difficult ball right over the defender's head and a key pickup like over time. This was an awesome catch, and it was pretty dirty on Donald's part. I couldn't believe he did that. But it's funny to me because this might be who Kmet is, right? Somebody who maybe he's not outstandingly physically impressive, and that's okay because at the moment he's come up with every contested catch you could ask of him, and you can work with that in the offense, especially with Demetrius Harris being a guy who's not catching the football. So this is another interesting play. I'll show it because why not? Kmet's really cool. I can talk more about that in a little bit, Beast. So here, I think Foles just makes the decision because quarterbacks all the time will make sort of predetermined decisions, and he gets Kmet one-on-one against a linebacker. Demetrius Harris is actually going to come open and free, and you know what? There's a decent chance Foles may have said, I don't want to throw it to Demetrius, I'm not sure he can catch it, but I doubt it. More than likely, what I've seen happen with quarterbacks is that they give this option one look, like one quick look, and then they almost immediately work this because you're supposed to get a matchup out of it. And credit to Foles, he recognizes it isn't covered, pump fakes right there, catches the linebacker as Kmet curls upfield, making a decent move after the route, and then Foles buries it on a second throw where Kmet catches the ball. I found this a really neat example of what might actually be able to happen with chemistry over time, because again, this isn't open, and maybe a faster player could get open against the Rams linebacker, but Foles fools him there as Kmet curls upfield, and then Foles and Kmet combine to make a really solid play afterwards for a neat little 7-yard gain. Hooray. That's pretty cool. And you know what? There are some moments of positivity, especially if you do look at the quarterback play. I'll go ahead and give you guys a spoiler. I've actually thought from the moment that he came under center, Nick Foles isn't incredibly good, but there is an amazing amount of standard that comes from him, where he'll do little things like we just saw, making a play with his eyes, making a play with his pump fake, thinking through the play, giving his guy a chance downfield, everything all up and down the gamut of what a quarterback can do, Foles is able to at least try and do, and there's a lot to be said for what he's able to show about the offense. And here, of course, the Bears are going to run another running play, and what is this? I think it's Donald versus Ifedi, and Donald gets the better of him, driving Ifedi way, way back. And I could talk about how Ifedi's pad level is insanely high, which, in case you're curious, there's that common phrase everybody knows about, like low man wins. And if you look at Ifedi's arms, he's not low in the slightest, and he hasn't been for about a week or two. So he gets driven back. Montgomery tries to make a play. Leno's losing a little bit of his edge block, sure, and Whitehair's not exactly dominating his matchup. Guys, we've seen this story before, that the Bears' run game just doesn't have the guys, at least it doesn't come across that way, to just win up front offensive line out of these heavy sets. That's one thing I'll cut to the chase right now and tell you that if I was going to complain about something, it's the fact that we keep lining up in these very, very run-heavy sets. Cole Kmet and Demetrius Harris and Bobby Massey, Jermaine Ifedi, Cody Whitehair, Rashad Coward, Charles Leno, and Jimmy Graham. Is that exactly the cadre of guys that you want to establish the run with? It's not for me. And we can do that in a little vengeful. I'm on a roll. When I look at this running game, I think you can run with it out of the shotgun, but look at what happens. When the Bears bunch up like this, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys within immediate striking distance of this run, which again goes up that way. So it's an 8-man box because the Bears have basically decided they're okay with that, and let alone the fact that there are 3 other guys close to the line that could fill in. It's, to me, there's something to be said for if you're not a strong running team, but you're built to throw the ball, at least line up like you're going to throw it more often than you run these heavy sets, because shocker, when you run at the heavy side of the field, not only are the Rams well aware that it's coming, and as you can see, they play it really well, but look at all these extra guys that can cloud the box whenever they want to. Kmet does a decent job of getting in the way of his, but nobody else is at the second level, and if Montgomery was able to slip through his block, it's not like he would have gotten much because there's just too many blue and gold jerseys there. It's trouble. And sure, you can run some play action. We'll talk a lot about play action in a little bit. But let me see. There's one other play that hey, if anybody is a Kmet fan, this one's another nice one. I think this is where he's going to slice across. Yeah, so he blows up that linebacker. And you know what? It's not an incredible block, but I'll slow it down just so we can all see it and appreciate, you know what? The young rookie, second round pick, tight end, wow, words. He hits that linebacker, creates a little bit of space, and the Bears are able to gain on like a 3rd and 3 enough yards to get it, which is neat. And you know what, Marco? That's the thing. There's a lot of data that says you don't actually have to be afraid of the run to run any play action because because just the idea that you might run the ball at all moves the defense. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So then, this is another problem. So this is the last execution play that we'll talk about for a little bit, because at that point, I want to go into a little more of the finer points of coaching. Here is what I will tell you right now was the Bears' best running play of maybe the year, Like, in terms of creativity, this is as good a running play as I've seen the Bears attempt. So I'll walk you through what they're about to do, right? So the Bears are about to have Cordero Patterson drift across, and he's going to get the ball on a quick toss, and he's basically going to run around the outside. Cole Kmet is going to take on Leonard Floyd right there. Darnell Mooney is going to make a great block, set up his guy to get blocked and get to the second level, and David Montgomery is going to get through the hole. You'll see in a second what the problem is, Jen, because there is a problem on this. If you watch this play, don't watch Patterson, watch the blocking. Take a look at this wonderful, beautiful running lane that Montgomery is running through. You got Bears blockers taking their guy all over the place. Kmet's doing just enough of a job on Kmet to create a running lane. Mooney's out in front, potentially able to block his guy. Montgomery is well on the way to hit his assignment, and all Patterson has to do is plant his foot like a kick return and just get upfield. So what does he do? He runs it outside. And that wonderful running lane, again, Montgomery's over here. He's making plenty of contact. Mooney is in the way of his guy. But now it just doesn't matter because Leonard Floyd's able to run Patterson outside the play, and the Bears get maybe 2 yards when all they needed. Yeah, exactly like you're saying, Akusi. The wide receivers, they like running outside, and you need a second running back that's going to be able to do this. And you know what? Like, Tariq Cohen probably would have been able to. A true running back number 2 would have probably been able to. But I get annoyed because when Patterson touches the ball, this isn't even anti-Patterson. It's just that vision, as we've covered, is not his strength. He's not great at seeing a hole, which is a huge problem. And the Bears pay for it here because while it's awesome a good way to put it is, while it's awesome in Madden to give your biggest, fastest guy the ball and just have him chug through a lane, in the real world, you need to be able to read a hole and make a decent adjustment. And sure, Leonard Floyd drives Cole Kmet back, but I'll credit the rookie tight end. He's holding a ferocious run defender just enough in check that maybe he'll have to fight through an arm tackle, but that's about it. And it's something that I'm getting driven crazy by the lack of attention to detail, because that's as good a run as the Bears are going to get. And if Patterson, for instance, had gone inside, at this point he might be right here. And if if Darnell Mooney and Montgomery are able to basically work together to seal off enough guys, who knows, this could have potentially been a touchdown, which is a huge bummer. But yeah, you see this all the time, not just in the Bears running game. I mean, look at this, guys. The Bears are it's technically a heavy set, but you know what? Somebody said this earlier, it's a passing set. It's something that the Bears have shown that they're willing to pass out of in the shotgun. And because of that, they're able to get the Rams spread out just enough to make a play on the ground. And the same Bears offensive line is suddenly downfield executing assignments. It's to me anyways, the Bears are not good enough, and this is okay to say, to just line up and hammer it like it's 2006. But that same creativity we had in 2018, and we'll get to more of this later, would be huge around now, because I think that there's a ton of stuff the Bears would be able to do. Now, let's see if there's any other plays. We can talk about it. I like going chronological, but the Bears they run another running play. They get to 3rd and 5, which you could make a comment there about the fact that the Bears are just constantly running like a second running play. And sure, in theory, great for Nagy trying to establish the run, but they're a passing team with a passing strength, and this is as good a play as any to walk through real fast. So the Bears, if I remember correctly, yeah, okay, this is where the pressure issues start. So we can talk about that in a little bit, Vengeful. But so let me regain my bearings. Okay, here we go. So this is a 3rd and 5 on the end of the drive. And again, this is where the Rams go make a nice play. But I will say, so it's a 5-man blitz. Whitehair takes his guy. This linebacker is coming on a delay, so he's actually not going to get picked up. And because he doesn't get picked up, and Leonard Floyd, as you'll see, just roars around the edge, Nick Foles does his job. He sees the free runner. He finds the guy who's going into the space that one is vacating. right here. That's Anthony Miller, because that's where the linebacker came from, and he immediately throws to it. That's his job. And the Rams make a nice play. They're able to cut this down for a quick 3 yards and a third down hold. And this is where, if it was the Bears, I'd tell you it was a great play design, because they get exactly what they want. Foles does his job, delivers the ball, and Mooney's not able to make a play because they're ready for it. Credit to the Rams defense. They were able, when the Bears made mistakes, like we saw with Cordero Patterson early in the series, they were able to clamp down on the Bears at some point down the lane. And yeah, it's frustrating. And hey, you know what, Franklin? I wish somebody could get a touchdown, but there's a lot here, because this game had good moments. I was going to say it had good moments and bad moments, but it's pretty much just bad moments, and it's a huge bummer. So we'll skip this drive where I think Foles. So this is another play that, believe it or not, it kind of, it kind of fits into, there's something to say here. So the Bears are going to line up in the heavy set, and if there's one thing they do decently out of the heavy set, it's set up play action passes. Because say what you will, look at this pocket for Nick Foles. I'm going to talk about this a little more later when we actually get into, offensive theory, because I do want talk a little bit about offensive theory, but if the Bears we're going to make one change. I'll synthesize it for you. They need to go from, right now, they're at about 16%. That is 16% play action percentage, up that thing to around 33. Sean McVay and Sean McVay and Bill Belichick are running hot at about 42% play action percentage, which, you know what? That's a lot, and I'd love to see that. But let's just start by doubling it, because there's something to be said here. When you run play action, the key here is that the defensive line, if we go back and watch, the defensive line has to play the run, especially because the Bears love to run out of these heavy sets. There's a legitimate argument to be made here that these play action passes might as well be the best way you can get a clean pocket and help out your offensive line. Look at this. The entire defensive pass rush is playing the run. And if Montgomery had gotten the run, great. Yeah, he'd be tackled, but that doesn't help the Rams in this case, because it's right here. And one thing that I will say, so at first I thought this was a bad throw on Foles' part. Darnell Mooney makes a fabulous move, and the ball ends up a little too far out in front of him. But a defensive back friend of mine basically convinced me that if you watch this safety right here, he's about to range from the numbers all the way over. This is an absolutely insane range play by this safety, who turns on the jets, interferes with Mooney just a little at the top of that throw, and it might slow him enough to contest the catch, because if he hadn't been there, Mooney might pick up about one extra step. The point here isn't to criticize Foles. If anything, I want to give Darnell Mooney props. And now take a look here for what he's able to do against this corner, where he just toasts him on the double move, which is awesome. What I really want to talk about is that, again, if there's a quick change for this offense that I'd love to see, it's a little more play action, because this throwing opportunity just didn't show up later in the game. These play action passes, and I can show you more, I've got a whole bunch written down, gave Foles the best pocket he could ask for and actually let him step into his throw. You'll see by the end of the game, he just stops stepping into the throws because he knows he's about to get lit up almost all the time. And if there's something that I would love to see fixed, it's let's run more play action, because it helps out an offensive line that we all know is a problem. Again, credit to the safety. He makes a great play. Foles puts this ball more or less where you'd like him to see, because what you don't want to do as a quarterback is you don't want to leave this ball over in this direction, because if it's near the corner, he can catch up and potentially make a play on it. You're trying to lead him away, and Foles kind of does, but man, does John Johnson here, number 43, just range over. And it's not quite Eddie Jackson level, but it's in the same category of like, wow, that is really, really good football, and it's on 2nd and down. So the Bears then get their next play. But I think And let's see if it's the same one that I'm remembering it is. Okay, it is. This is a huge pain. So you guys might remember this one. This is where Nick Foles drops back, gets a pretty clean pocket, fires to Javon Wims. Wims doesn't get the first down, but they're spotted it anyways. And what really sucks about this play, let's go ahead and turn off the notifications. Thanks for bearing with me, friends. What really sucks about this play, let's see if they show it, because I can't go to the broadcast. That gets me demonetized. Dadgum. Okay, so you'll just have to trust me on this. Basically, what happens is the Bears run this. They don't get what they want. They're about a yard short, and Matt Nagy, but they get awarded the first down. This is the key here. And once they get awarded the first down, it takes them until the 18-second mark on the next play clock to get set up at the line. I've seen teams do this over and over and over. When they know a call went in their favor, they line up, they run a play. Exactly like you're talking about, Akusi. When you know it's close, you take it, you line up, and you do something. Instead, the Bears kind of lollygagged coming back up to the line, and I wish I could walk you through the broadcast. Just if you want to, especially if you have Game Pass, you can go take a look. The Bears just walked right on up. They started to kind of get in position, and then, oh darn, they threw the challenge flag, and the ball got turned over. So that would be bad enough, because the Bears have now lost the Bears have now lost a first down. But instead, they line up on 4th and 1. They're going to run the most obvious QB sneak in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. QB sneaks are often obvious. And as much as everybody said they don't get the yards, I think Foles falls forward and does get them. But as you saw, there's a flag that flew because, oh man, Rashad Coward jumped off sides, or whatever you want to call it, a false start. This is such a glaring mental error. And no, I'm not the biggest Rashad Coward fan in the world. I think he was very clear in 2019 about exactly how good he was. Even so, I'll put this on the head coach and say, you've got to be better than taking a 5-yard foul on a huge 4th and 1 where you're going for it from the 20. For crying out loud. Yeah, how good he was, to be clear. You're going for it from the 20. This is very Arians-esque, and oh man. And sure, you know what? I wouldn't surprise me if Nagy lit into Coward. I didn't see it on the broadcast because I do a whole bunch of things like mid-game. But as I watched this play, I know this really dawned on me of like, okay, so they were way too patient lining up on something that you should think anybody would just line up, run a play. You've got a quick out. Like there's something in the playbook that the Bears could have easily lined up and just had Jimmy Graham run like a quick out on 1st and 10, and they'll get the 4 yards. You could just hand it off. Who cares? Just have everybody stand around for whatever matters, and it's still 2nd and 10. But instead, they lollygag. They get 4th and 1, and Rashad Coward jumps off. And oh my word, at this point, things really start to turn for the worse. So then afterwards, you know what, Brett? I have no idea. Every once in a while, anyways, every once in a while, these streams seem to either go perfectly or they have a broadcasting hiccup. So hopefully at some point, the stream will stabilize because I've got the Ethernet wired in, like we're doing what we can. But so anyways, and then at this point, the Bears, once again, take a look at this. They run a play-action handoff with Patterson, and you're going to see he gets a clean pocket. If the Bears, at the very least, they'll be able to create these clean pocket opportunities for a guy who's been a fairly accurate thrower. And then they throw it right here real quick to Allen Robinson, who hauls it in for... Actually, it's not a catch, but the Bears get the play call. And you know what, James? I'll tell you what, the Rams defense was awesome. Like, massive credit to him. The Bears offense did not look good, but the Rams defense was playing really, really well and certainly made us look like what you could call it boys among men. You could say whatever you want, but either way, the Bears offense looked outclassed by the Rams defense. And I will say a lot of it was because it seems like Matt Nagy got away from what was working. Like, take a look here. He takes a quick look over at this side of the field, checks it's not there, but look at all this time. He's able to step into the next throw. I don't know why he doesn't. He gets panicky with his feet. Maybe it's because Floyd was flying around the edge, but either way, he delivers enough of a ball to an open receiver, and it's a pretty nice play. And then afterwards, I wish that I could show you this. The Bears don't get lined up for 30 seconds. And you may wonder, like, okay, why is that a problem? Because on the broadcast, you could see that Robinson didn't catch this ball. That same ball, you know what, I'll go back to it one more time just so that maybe we can see it a little bit. Robinson gets his hands under it, and then it flits through and hits the ground. It's a huge, like... Then at that point, once again, they're slow getting up to the line, so they almost lose this. Ooh, we might be able to see it here. So let's slow it down. Yeah, so that ball goes straight through Robinson's hands and hits the turf, and you can see it very clearly on the broadcast, and they are lucky that they didn't throw, or that they didn't, what would you call it, throw the challenge flag, because... had they, this play would have come back. But instead, the Bears, like you can kind of see, are very slow getting set up. They gotta switch formations. They gotta do this and that and take their time. And again, you know what? There's nothing wrong with a shotgun set with one tight end. I have no issue with this. Like having Graham on the end, it's not a heavy enough set. And take a look at what it does to the box. This is a 6-man box. If the Bears want to run into this, that is perfectly fine. Like, you don't need in any sense to be running all these running plays into 7 or 8-man boxes without the ability to exploit those matchups. And right here, I can't remember what the Bears actually run. Just a quick out for Graham, 6 yards, but it takes forever for them to get set up. And at any point, the Rams could have easily challenged it and taken this off the board. This is the kind of stuff that I feel like is easily assignable to Nagy. Why is this so difficult? Like, you get a gift from the referee and you're almost going to give it back because you're taking as long as you are. So then, let's see. There's a whole bunch of plays starting around now where the Bears just get into trouble with what they are and aren't going to do. Okay, so this is one where, if you remember, right after this, so before this play and after this 6-yard gainer, Mooney tries to line up in the backfield. He doesn't have any idea where he's going, and the Bears basically end up having to burn a timeout. And you know what? At least they come out of the timeout with a pretty good play here, where Darnell Mooney is going to rotate from one side of the field to the other and then run back across the grain to get wide open for a quick 18-yard gainer. But either way, like, man, why did that need a timeout? Like, so they waste a timeout because they can't get into formation now 4 weeks into the Foles offense, which is a problem. You don't want to be wasting timeouts, especially in big games like what they had with like this one with the Rams. And then I think, and Game Pass is going to skip it because it doesn't show the broadcast, right after that play, so after timeout 1, and then one play, they have to call another one because they don't know what they're doing. And these are the kinds of things where I look at this and I ask myself, why in the world is this offense as hard as it is? Like, and eventually we'll see. We can get into that in a little bit. But there's so much about this Nagy offense that feels way overcomplicated. Why in the world do we need to use Patterson on almost every formation? Why do we need to run so much out of these heavy sets? Why, as simple as it sounds, can't we, let's see, this play works if it is a heavy set, because it is. In this setting, they line up in a shotgun formation with a tight end on this side. And so, as you can see, again, this becomes a clogged run box. And if I had to guess, the primary reason that this ends up working like it does, because this is where Mooney's going to come across, is because they're able to bait the Rams into thinking that it's a run play. And so Allen Robinson's going to clear out, and I actually don't know how he does it. So we'll see. Yeah, he runs a quick slant route. Mooney separates from the zone coverage. This is really good. Also, nice little pick by Robinson downfield here. Totally legal. based on the way that he runs it. And so he catches it. Mooney's able to make a play in space. Good job. And it comes from the fact that the Bears are able to use formations that at least, even if they imply run, they're throwing it. So again, if the Bears can play a little more with that idea that maybe we're running it, but maybe we're throwing it, like use more play action, especially if you're going to keep running these heavy sets that don't get you anything. But I am a-okay if somebody said it in the comments, use more 11 personnel, because man, it really does seem past a certain point like we don't want to put our best 11 guys on the field. Instead, we want to try to play football with 16 players on offense. And sure, good offenses can do that, but the Bears aren't that. So then, of course, I could point out that right around here, the Bears start edging into that territory where they're basically going to get out-muscled by a good Rams defense, which is a problem. Nixlin, I can tell you that Nick Foles is fine. Is he good? I mean, he's good compared to what a lot of Chicago quarterbacks have been. Is he bad? Not compared to what a lot of quarterbacks have been. He's kind of invisible. He mostly does his job. And sure, he makes some mistakes here and there, but most quarterbacks do. His footwork gets frenetic around here. This sack should just about tell you everything. So take a look at this, and it's not going to break your heart. But what you're about to see is, I think it's a 1st and 10 coming out of a timeout. Allen Robinson is going to see this off coverage right here. So he's going to do what the Bears have been doing for weeks. He's going to run up and he's going to run a curl route. This guy is not going to care. I'm just going to tell you so that you can see it. Then Cordero Patterson's going to run a quick in route. So if that's not open, at least Foles can throw it to Cordero Patterson. But this linebacker is going to step back and cover it, and the safety is going to drop down on it. And Foles basically isn't going to really have anywhere to go with it, because just to call it like it is, Nagy's offense has hit a point where people know what's coming. Like, I'll slow it down. This cornerback is never fooled. Cordero Patterson's man, never fooled. Foles steps up, realizes that there's just about nothing he can do with it, and just sits down and takes the 4-yard sack. If he was omnipotent, he might have found Anthony Miller. I think it's Miller. We'll watch the play and find out. Might actually be Mooney. Okay, so Wims is the closest to open, because I've watched this a couple times. And I agree, Mike. That's a great point. If Patterson's actually running this inside, maybe that's what Foles is pausing for right here. Just amazed that Patterson sat down with room right here in the offense. And sure, Allen Robinson's trying to run back and break open, but a lot of times these things are based on timing, and you're trying to see if you can't connect with your receivers immediately after the break. And because the offensive line can't protect forever, and they get into way more problems back in the end. Let me see. What are you saying? Let's see. Yeah, that it's trouble where the Bears haven't had a whole lot of good quarterbacks. And so Foles, one thing I'm finding refreshing, I've said this a couple times in plenty of my videos, if you're new to my channel, I'll let you know that one of my favorite pieces of work is the Nick Foles breakdown that I have in my 2019 offseason playlist, because in it, I basically describe both the good and the bad of what he offers, and my final verdict is that Foles is basically a mirror. When he's on a really good offensive team, like the 2017 and 2018 Eagles, he'll make plenty of plays because he'll serve balls up like the one we talked about with Kmet a little bit earlier, where he just lobbed up the play action pass and Kmet came down with it. But if his line can't hold for him, he's going to get in trouble very, very quickly. And it's going to make him look really, really bad. And certainly the reflection that he has given us about the Bears offense hasn't been a good one thus far. And I do think a lot of it comes down to the coach, because I mean, I'd love to say it's anything else, but after a certain amount of weeks, it becomes apparent that Chicago doesn't really know what it wants to do. Another great example of issues that the Bears had on offense. So what you're about to see here is that the Bears, they need 10 yards. So here's where they are. Here's where they're going. So they actually got to get some distance here. They got to get 10 yards. And So what they're going to try to do is that they're going to have Anthony Miller run a deep post route and Cole Kmet run a deep dig. So his goal is to, his being Miller, is to run downfield and occupy the attention of this inside defender if he carries him up and these two safeties, so that whoever Cole Kmet is on, I think it might be Ramsey, but it also might be this interior defender. Can't quite remember. He can work that one-on-one and try to make a play over the middle of the field. Here's the problem. Let's see if we can't catch the snap. Leonard Floyd down here pretty much gets an unimpeded run at Nick Foles, where Foles gets a deep drop, Massey does absolutely nothing, and he gets slammed before Cole Kmet's even broken. Granted, it's Jalen Ramsey, but so he's waiting for the Miller combination to resolve, and some people, I'm sure you're thinking of it, are going to say, well, Darnell Mooney's open. But remember, he being Foles in this case, needs Mooney to carry into the middle of the field because he's got to wait for this to resolve before he can make his decision. And instead, he doesn't get the chance to. Floyd's on him before he was able to do just about anything. Here it is live. Just rips right around the edge, plays basically over before it starts, and the Rams shut him down. It's a problem. I mean, I would love to say that there's something here about like, wow, the Bears offense really, it was so close, but they laid an egg in this game. And the Bears defense didn't do great either, but I don't want to talk about them for a little bit because I think it's easy for Chicago to get angry at their defense, but this was an offensive problem. What stinks is, again, had the Bears, I don't know if play action would have actually gotten anybody to bite, to be totally fair, but if they had, I don't know, there are these ways that you're hoping that the Bears are able to create protection, help out your offensive line a little bit, and it's a real problem. Andrew, I don't know why in the world Pace is so hesitant to make moves to improve the offensive line. You can take a look here, and I like reading body language sometimes. In this case, take a look at David Montgomery and what he's going to do. He needs to help wherever there needs to be help. So what he's, of course, going to do is jump forward, take a quick look at Aaron Donald before making any decision about where to go. Because he takes that look, and because Floyd gets as far around as he does, Montgomery clearly thinks the problem is going to come from up in the middle, and it doesn't. It comes from around the edge, which is a huge problem. And Mike, you know what? You can totally say that. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that Cole Kmet trying to beat Jalen Ramsey on a dig route is a problem. At least if you had protected, Darnell Mooney would have come across and just take a look at all that beautiful open space that Mooney might have been able to get into. But yeah, I mean, it's problematic because when your quarterback, as Foles kind of mentioned to Brian Greasy, whether it was on the record or not, if he drops back and he doesn't have time to run the play, there's just not a ton that he can do. And yeah, exactly, Jay. What generally happens in this case is what you want to hit that shallow crosser, but you're waiting for it to get to the middle of the field so that Mooney has more and more time to separate from this corner. Because if you throw it to him right now, Mooney basically has to catch the ball and then keep running. But instead, if you have the opportunity to let this develop and for Mooney to basically get to about this midfield spot, you can throw it to him where the ball hits him right around there, and then he can curl up and run right in the gap that the defense has made. But yeah, problematic either way. It gets open, but you have to give it a second. Anyways, this continued. And you could talk about timeout mismanagement. You could talk about the fact that the play calls that came in seemed kind of dense. One that I pointed out that I was like, what in the world are we doing? It's 2nd and 14 after that full sack I showed you earlier. And yeah, Mike, I knew as soon as I made that video that bad things were going to happen, by the way. That fun little Bears goofy thing. I was like, it's bad. But so, of course, we lost. Anyways, what really drives me wild, y'all, this is a 2nd and 14 play. We have Allen Robinson, Javon Wims, and a bunch of tight ends. What in the world are we doing? Oh, by the way, if you do want to say anything about the teams on the back wall, this team right there, maybe the Bears' ticket to success, the Cowboys, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, it was a fun video. Why not, right? But so the Bears are going to line up in a heavy set, for crying out loud, on 2nd and 14. What in the world? Not only do they line up in a heavy set, but they actually run the ball against an 8-man box. And y'all, it goes like you'd expect it to. Like, what is that? How does that help? I don't understand this. I don't understand what Matt Nagy thinks he's doing when he lines up in these heavy sets, especially in a long down situation, and doesn't even call play action. Like, just run it out of the shotgun. There's a lot of stuff you can do from 11 personnel that you can't do from a heavy set. Why? How does this play call make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me to line up on 2nd and 14 against this front and try to run an outside zone play, expecting to somehow what? Suddenly beat the Rams, suddenly gain 8 yards. I mean, what? How do I grade this? You know what I mean? I really like to think that I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I'll try to find the bright spots of your football team, because I like it when people point out the bright spots in mine. But this is ridiculous from a coaching standpoint, especially when, if you take a look at almost anything the Rams did, I mean, the Rams immediately identified, just to point something out, I talked about this last week, that if you can get Roy Robertson Harris, Robert Quinn, and Roquan Smith on the same side of the field, you take advantage of it and you get a big run. What is the first play the Rams do? They go straight at those 3 and immediately rip off an 11-yard gain that's only not longer, because Roquan Smith, to his credit, I guess, he gets sealed at the top level, but at least he's able to shed this block number 77 eventually and make a play a little bit later right there. It's not a good play, because a good play would deny like more yardage, but it's a decent play, I guess, to save it. From there, the Rams, you know what? You don't need a running threat to set up play action, but man, it helps. And the Rams were able, this is a 4-yard gain, but even on their 4-yard gains, it feels like they're so much closer than the Bears were. I mean, this was, I'm sure you guys will agree, almost like a masterclass, sort of. And instead, the Bears then, like, take a look at this. This became a huge problem, and it's just about the only defensive analysis you need to see, because you know what? Like, I'll just give it credit where credit is due. This Bears defense is talented. They did play a bad game against an offense that's got talent, and McVay came out with the right game plan. But man, Khalil Mack's going to crash down on this run, and he must have gotten victimized on this like 4 times, because Jared Goff pulls the quarter, and he is so free, able to throw it easily to number 17 here, who just runs right on into space, takes advantage of the run stuffer that is Danny Trevathan in ISO coverage, and there's nothing Danny can do. I mean, this is just the right play call. You saw Nagy do it. It's sometimes you're just going to fool the defense with misdirection, and the Rams used simple play action like this to get basically all the way down the field, and I mean, it looked a lot easier, I'll tell you that. And what drives me wild is that here we are, and the Bears don't know what they're doing. The Rams clearly do. You can watch this drive, and you can see that, like, the Rams had a plan to get the ball out quick and take advantage of the fact that Fuller loves to line up 10 yards off the ball, for crying out loud. So if Fuller, like we see here, is going to line up 10 yards off the ball, they're going to throw quickly underneath and set up Cooper Kupp on a nice little picking action there for a quick 8 to 10 yards. It's easy. It's so easy. And they're able to use these play action bootlegs, these tendencies of the Bears, to make quick plays and get Goff comfortable in a game that I could find you some lowlights if you want to see it. Goff didn't want to play well. Like, Goff was kind of struggling, especially when they put him back in the pocket. This might be an example. That's like 3 hitches and an overthrow. He didn't want to face this Bears pass rush. Like, he was thinking about it. It was clearly in his head. And so the Bears send 5. They don't even, Bilal Nichols gets some pressure, which is neat. But from there, McVay is able to calm his quarterback down by consistently calling runs that attack gaps in the Bears, and and play action plays that make things easy for him. That's a tough ball. Like this is your standard. Oh boy, did we get a penalty on this? Oh, this is that is this the no, it's not. All right, let me take a look at what this is. This is defensive holding. So even when the Bears get a good play, it went against them and they did something. The Bears get a good play, it went against them and they did something that was a problem. And no, exactly, Marcus, he didn't go deep against the Bears every time. And yeah, like the Sean Gibson volleyball spike. I mean, there's tons of stuff, thank you, James, by the way, that you could say about these Bears, like this, another play. It's so easy. And the Bears could run this kind of stuff. Maybe not with Jared Goff, or they're not going to let, they're not going to let Foles run the ball, to be totally fair. But look at this. The Bears are able to generate that same kind of space off play action, because the underrated part about play action, let me like, let's make something clear. There are a whole lot of people that think that because your running game is as good as it is, you're able to catch guys in the defensive backfield shifting over. In my opinion, the big key to play action is that it's going to take this entire front four, if not the front seven, and they're all going to just go that way. And this, in my opinion, is something that the Bears need to deal with. Because if they're able to do that, look, here's the whole front seven. And no, the Bears' defensive backfield hasn't, like, taken the bait. They're not 2 steps in trying to defend the run. But what they are is they're back in coverage. There is no pass rush right here because of the play-action fake. And, man, like, exactly like you're saying, Stoop, it just looks as if the other team is a lot more prepared, and they came in, the Bears fans, I said it, you probably said it, hey, we could get some really, really great pass rush here. And McVay came out with a whole bunch of play calls that said, I'm not going to let you. Like, you can't, or the play action fake, partially because the Rams running game is as good as it is, but also partially just because this is the nature of play action, and even the Bears do it and get this kind of stuff. The Bears have to honor it. And so they do honor it. Goff ends up legging out a couple yards. And what I will say about Jared Goff, people are asking, like, how good is Jared Goff? What I'll say about Goff is that he has progressed into a point where he can make simple reads, and credit to him. He'll make simple reads. He used to really struggle with even those. And when he's set and throws the football, he is crazy accurate. And you know what? That's something that I'll say was a real problem with Mitch. Like, what really ground my gears about Mitch wasn't just that he was struggling to read the field, but it was that when he had what you would consider a layup, he didn't tend to hit the mark. Goff, at least, when you present him a window, he'll fit the ball in exactly like it should be, and McVay's really able to work with that. I only say that because I think Goff is one of the more interesting quarterback evolutions of recent time, because he was really, really strugglesome a little while ago, and SoFi Stadium looks great. But so they keep running play action. The Bears keep having to honor it. And look at this time. Jared Goff even throws a bad ball out of this because I think he's really worried about the pass rush. But look at this. I got to do it in real time. Let's count Mississippi's, right? So from the snap, let's time it up. You get 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. He finally releases the ball, and that's even a slow Mississippi count. Like, there's this play action creates these opportunities. You've seen 3 play action passes and 2 runs. You don't have to be balanced in this. There is no mythos around play action that says you have to run more runs than play action passes. And McVay's proving it. Goff here, he just sits in the back and he misses his throw because I do think he doesn't like playing the Bears. There's an interview where he talks about how Khalil Mack is his least favorite player to play against in the league. I do think he started from almost a rattled state because his footwork's decent. I mean, he just whiffs that. And the Rams are able to say, okay, no problem. 3rd and 4. Like, we can make this work. And let's see what they do. Do they not get this one? I really thought that we stopped them on the first drive. Anyways, that's a quick reminder. This is actually a play that I think Khalil Mack makes. People were looking at this like, what's going on? Because what you're about to see is a quick bubble screen where I think the receiver's supposed to catch the ball and go back outside. But if you watch Khalil Mack, he's going to get over the top of that defender and end up making a play that he doesn't get a stat for, but credit to him, he recognizes the screen right there. He's already on top of the receiver, and he pushes him back inside where the receiver really doesn't have a chance anymore. And credit to Mack. That's a really nice defensive play, and the Bears defense came through when they needed to. The Bears defense had a bad day, and that's all right. Like, it was a rough day, and they still only gave up 10 points in the first half to a team that looked infinitely more prepared than they were. And you know, it's funny, Elon. You talk about like how badly Hecker messed us up, and as much as I'd love to say Johnny Hecker like did a ton of stuff, it's not like Ginn did anything. But exactly like you're saying, DJ, Mac did a great job pushing inside, and Ginn here just lets this ball fall and it drifts back, and the Bears lose about 7 yards at minimum, because if you catch the ball there, it doesn't go back to there. Ted Ginn didn't catch a punt. Like at some point, it was rough. And it's funny because the time of possession thing, Jay, I've found time of possession a little unreliable. No, Ted Ginn didn't catch a ball, to be clear. But time of possession is a little weird because if you throw the ball and you get a bunch of first downs, your defense gets rested, even if incomplete passes technically bring your time of possession down. The Bears went 3 and out too often. That's a thing. The Bears took a penalty and they ended up not able to execute and overcoming it. That's a thing. The Bears didn't possess the ball or get down the field long enough, but we all knew that. The trouble is that McVay looked more than prepared to face this Bears defense, and the Bears plan instead was, hey, I'm going to take the worst part. Again, like I can go all the way back to this first play, and you know what? I'll say it. You guys don't have to agree with me, and that's all right. The Bears decided that their first play of the game was to line up in a heavy set with, let's count, 1, 2, 3 tight ends and Allen Robinson. So if we count the personnel, you're basically going to see it's 5 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends, so 8 blockers total against, I think this is a 7-man front if I'm counting it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they've got 8 men on 7 guys. If you count Kmet over here, and they're only able to get 3 yards because they decided, in Matt Nagy's infinite wisdom, that they're a running football team, and somehow this is what they're good at. The Rams crash down immediately, as happens when you run out of heavy sets, and it's just bad. Like, I want to be optimistic, guys. Even when Mitch was in the 2019 offense and things looked as bad as they did, I found myself saying, hey, at least I see the offensive plan. Like, I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to run the ball. Not run the ball. We're trying to throw the ball. We're trying to be West Coast. We're trying to do things that are creative and at least more like what they do in Kansas City, a little more West Coast with some creative rub on it. But instead, somewhere along the lines, the Bears became this team that decided that they were going to just line up and run it like it's 2006. And we don't have Reuben Brown. We don't have Olin Kreutz. We don't have Thomas Jones. We don't have those guys that went out and just crushed people, road graded. What was it? Jason McKee and... we had Jason McKee, we had Desmond Clark, we had all these guys that were such reliable blockers in power systems, and here we are, and you know, you guys have heard me say it, that I think Charles Leno is a perfectly fine pass blocker, but whoever it was that decided that Charles Leno and Rashad Coward needed to be the lead blockers on the first play of the game is thinking too hard. Leno even holds his mark enough in this case, but come on, this isn't what we're best at. Like, there are tons of things that we could do outside of lining up in these sets and trying to run it. I don't know if you guys know this, but our yards per attempt out of 13 personnel, so remember, that is 5 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends, exactly what you're seeing. This is 13 personnel, and the Bears run it more than anybody in the NFL, and if not, they run it a little less than the Giants, maybe. If they are in these sets, the Bears are averaging less than 3 yards per carry. I think it's close to about 2.6, and we keep doing it. Oh my gosh, Sean, no kidding. I'll have to ask you about that later. But so I don't know why they keep doing this. I don't know what it is that Matt Nagy thought that this plan or game plan was going to do. We can go through the offense in just a little bit, but I actually want to take you guys back for a second before we get into more questions and answers, where I want to, believe it or not, take us back to what things looked like in 2018. And you guys are going to see what I'm going to see. This offense looked a lot more creative, not even necessarily with Mitch. Let me set the stage, because this is that game that I broke down in my Nagy breakdown from like way back when, which actually still kind of works because it shows what Nagy looked like at his best. So this is the game where, if you remember, Mitch Trubisky had thrown 2 interceptions. Neither of them were good. He looked like he was struggling in primetime lights, and they needed to move the ball and create some offense against this Seahawks team. So they come out in this late drive and they just get things going with easy dial-up plays, basically the same personnel, all things told. Like, quick motion reveals that there's a guy open over there, quick option to Gabriel, blocking is better than it has been in years here. They get 6 yards. I'll move to the next play. Like, we'll try to rip this through quickly, but I just want you guys to watch the sequencing. Then they run outside zone. Kyle Long, let me show you this. Kyle Long destroys his guy, and Jordan Howard's able to run right behind a bunch of decent blocks, chug out a first down, 5 yards. So they've now balanced a quick outside pass, and Jordan Howard's got more juice, it looks like, than David Montgomery does nowadays. It's ridiculous. So from there, they keep doing easy things. At this point, I think it might be a run play. I don't have this drive memorized. Okay, so this is like the one bad play of the drive, and it's credit to, what is it? It's Charles Leno, who can't quite hold his block, but they've pulled the center around, and if he had held his block, you've got this guy matched up right here. That is, I think it's Daniels, but yeah, I think it's Daniels. So Daniels is there. Whitehair is coming to block him. And let's take a look at the all-22. You guys are going to see a ton of space. So had Leno held that block, look at this space to run into. With wide receivers blocking downfield, any of these plays could have gone for more yardage than they did. You are totally right, Jay. It's not. I can't remember who our left guard was here. Maybe, or one of y'all in the comments, please remind me, because I legitimately am just having a brain fart moment and couldn't tell you who 64 is. Is it Larson? It might be. But I think it is Eric Kush. Great job. But yeah, so from there, they only get 1 yard. So what do they follow it up with? Take a look at this. Quick play action. Kick out to Trey Burton, who runs into, look at that space, for crying out loud. Again, you've got a quick play action, pulls the defense way over here, wide receivers out in front of their guys, Trey Burton cutting across the formation, and look at that. I mean, that is so easy. Nagy was able to dial up these exact kind of plays, and they're not rocket science. I mean, these aren't things that wouldn't work nowadays. You get to a point where you're looking at this 2018 offense, and it looks a lot more like that McVay Rams offense than our own does. And they're able to line up, sure, in some of these heavy sets that I was just ragging on, but they're able to plow forward because they know what they're doing and they're executing it. And they're able to make a lot more plays. In this case, Whitehair climbs up to the second level. Kush does enough. Kyle Long goes down to his knees to make a block for Jordan Howard to push through and chug out like 5 or 6 yards. So here they are, 2nd and 2. Looks like it was 8, as a matter of fact. And I love this play. They run a zone read in this moment for Taylor Gabriel, and Mitch is able to freeze this man just enough to get Taylor Gabriel way out into space looking for 2 yards. What's he able to do in space? He makes a play in the open field, slides past his guy, and the Bears get 2 yards. And this is the way the Nagy offense looked back in 18. It was flawed. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but to say that it had just gobs and gobs and gobs more talent than this Bears offense does, it's true, it had more, but it's a little disingenuous because the Bears were able to make plays. At this point, they run a play action play. I can't remember whether Mitch misreads this or not. Let's take a look. We'll see. But so he runs quick play action. This is maybe open, but either way, I remember now. He eats pressure. So he just makes a play with his feet and goes and gets 6 quick yards. And you'll see what I'm talking about. This is one where so Deion Sims is matched up against Frank Clark, and if you don't know anything about Frank Clark, he's a very, very good edge rusher, and he almost immediately just rips right around Sims. Mitch loses his feet as Burton's about to get open, so instead he just runs forward, grabs 6 yards with his feet, and just takes it. I think for what it's worth, Davon, that Foles probably would have just moved up in the pocket. Sims gets enough of a hold here that he could have. Ooh, I don't know. You may be right. No, Sims holds him, so he may have stepped up and gotten the throw off. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But the point isn't to bark about this or that. It's to show how this Nagy offense is primarily moving on the ground at this point, which we can't do anymore. And yeah, Frank Clark's on the Chiefs. I think he helped them win a Super Bowl. But so from here, they run a quick bubble, and here at Josh Bellamy, throwback to the past, they get a double receiver block right here, and they're about to isolate this guy and Bellamy with almost 15 yards of space. Look at that setup. That's wonderful with, Kevin White, and I think it might be Miller blocking, and Bellamy's got a hole to hit. He only needs 4 yards. Anything else is extra credit, and he makes enough of a move in the open field to go pick up the first down. And yeah, it is. This is before that shooting sleeve. But so you're already seeing that there's just enough diversity to keep the Seahawks off balance. They need to stay back, and they run. Oh, this is one of my favorites. We could run this tomorrow with Darnell Mooney. So they line up in this massive heavy set. They get the Seahawks clouding the box, just like we've talked about, and they are going to motion Gabriel across. They realize they're in a zone, and right here, a quick snap and hands it to Gabriel, and Gabriel just has to get around Trey Burton, who's setting a pick, and then he's in open field. As Charles Leno holds his block, this receiver gets it, and oh man, look at that! And Gabriel runs it up, gets a nice little open field gain, and the Bears pick up, it must have been, 8 to 10 yards? It's awesome. This is so easy, and we could run it with Mooney immediately because it catches them off guard. This isn't smoke and mirrors. It's just creative football and great play sequencing, and I don't know where it went because this Matt Nagy was right here. And this identity that he's got on offense, because I think this might be the end of the drive. No, they run one more running play. And look at this. This is, I think, standard outside zone. No, it might have a trap block on it. Let's take a look. But so the Bears take the snap. Yeah, so it's a power action. What is that? Cush gets right out there, grades the road a little bit. Howard works around and grinds it down to the 10-yard line. From there, what is it? So this is awesome. And then finally, right? The Bears have run the ball all the way down the field. So at this point, the Seahawks are starting to pinch everything in because they tend to think that they know what's coming. And take a look at this. What you're about to see is that Matt Nagy finally takes his rookie quarterback, rolls him out on a sprint, and he has Anthony Miller charge up and beat his man. And it works like a charm. Because he's been able to take the pressure off the quarterback, Miller gets wide open. Trubisky's got plenty of room to make the throw, and he does. And it's a touchdown. It's gorgeous. This is a great drive, and I love seeing Anthony Miller celebrate there. Guys, don't y'all remember this season? We were flying. We were able to actually move the ball on offense. And sure, we had our ups and downs and poor moments, but man, this was awesome. And I couldn't tell you why our offense went from looking like this, with this level of sequencing, all of a sudden back to an offense that just doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to do. I thought I did. I even had I even had, what is it, like plenty of situations where in 2019, in my like series breakdowns, as I was trying to just go through week by week, analyze the season, I would have told you guys that I thought I knew what Nagy wanted to do, something much more similar to that. But here we are, and the Bears are once again they're just trying to hammer the ball. This series is sad, honestly, because the Bears are. Also, yes, thank you, Mike. Thank you not only for liking it, but if you are enjoying the stream, please leave a like. Not only does it let me know that I'm doing a good job, and thank you, James. You've been awesome this whole time. Really, really kind soul you are. If you're enjoying the stream, yeah, drop a like. It's hugely helpful. If not, drop a dislike. That actually helps just as much. So here the Bears are. This point, let's see. So once again, all the little mistakes are really starting to add up. And so Hecker's going to kick this from like the 28. And if you take a look here, Ginn has every ability to catch this ball before it floats over his head and rolls down to the 1. And it stinks. Jack, you guys totally won. You did. You embarrassed us. I wish I could say otherwise, but if you haven't, or if you can't tell, it sent our franchise kind of into a tailspin right now. But yeah, I mean, 2018 was really rad. And so at this point, Ginn doesn't catch the punt, and you could say that is, I mean, anything. You could say that's, what is it? You could say that's a Nagy problem, coaching. I think it's more of a pace issue. Like, why in the world is there not a punt returner on the roster if that's what your predominant punt returner is going to do? But he is, and it forces the Bears on the 1 to do what any quarterback does for some reason. Like, you guys could tell me why. I think the I formation, it's just a fancier way to also not get a whole lot of yards, which is a huge problem. But hey, you know what? I get what they're trying to do, run the ball off the 1. Like, this is very classic football, and I get that. I've just started to get used to seeing quarterbacks drop back into the end zone and make a play, and suddenly they gain 12 yards. It feels like it's gotten easier and easier over time. I digress. The point is that the Bears run the I. They don't get much out of it, but hey, at least they almost get a safety off of Demetrius Harris, great guy that he is, immediately, like, holding in the end zone right there, and they covered that pretty well on the broadcast. But at least the Bears were able to get out of their own end zone, and too bad. So, or not too bad for the Bears, but too bad that they weren't able to get anything else. So then they line up once again in the I, and once again, now the box is 8 men strong with a hanging safety and John Johnson over here. And from there, they snap, hand off. Not a whole lot of push from the offensive line, which has become standard, and the Bears don't get much. So this is, I mean, when I look at this, at least what I have an issue with, and we did, thank heavens, Marco, that we signed Dwayne Harris. I just don't know why, we let Ginn go as long as we did as the punt returner if he didn't want to do it, because he really looked like he just didn't want to do the job. And hey, you know what, to all you Bears fans, Jack, it's not that his team earned this, but everybody's got a place at the table here. We're just talking about football. Let him exist. I'm more than happy, especially if we beat the Packers or something like that, to gloat on them too. So we'll get there. Patterson, as a matter of fact, Jay, it's funny you ask, because I can actually speak to that. Patterson isn't laterally quick enough. If you think about Cohen, one of Cohen's greatest qualities, pretend this is Cohen, is that he can get out here or out here almost as quickly as he could go upfield, and his acceleration is just incredible. The trouble is that Patterson's isn't. He needs a second. He likes to get going on a couple of steps. It's why the Bears tend to either pitch the ball to him or hand it to him on a stretch. Shifty or quick is a good way to put it, Bacon. So with that in mind, he doesn't make a great punt returner because most punt returners have to make a move almost immediately. And that's why you're not seeing Patterson do it, is because he doesn't have the ability to run up. And like you're saying, Evangelos, I have no idea why they didn't bring Spain in. I don't know why Cincinnati got the chance to bring in Spain, and we covered him last week, and I thought he was a pretty solid player. But even so, I really do get to the point. I understand that the Bears are trying to get off the line of scrimmage. I get this aspect of football, and I don't even know if it's Donald just making it's not. He sillies white hair and pushes him away, which is a problem. But so from there, JP Holtz and the Bears are able to just grind out whatever yards they can. They get like 3. That's fine on the goal line, I guess. But I just get frustrated, weirdly enough, seeing all this running when our team can actually throw the ball decently. And here is a play that I really don't. Or I think the best thing I could say about this is that this is an extraordinarily good play by the Rams defense. So this is the one, if you remember, you're about to see Darnell Mooney beat Jalen Ramsey on a double move. But Ramsey also knows that they've got an amazing blitz that's about to be sitting right here. So what happens is, in this case, the Bears are going to slant their offensive line towards Aaron Donald to make sure that he doesn't do anything. And watch this linebacker, because we should have it for a little while. This is real time. He finally creeps up right there at the end, doesn't give it away almost at all that he's about to come on a blitz, and ends up overwhelming. And it's a really good play by the Rams defense. Leno does exactly what he's supposed to. He takes the inside threat, and that leaves Foles to handle a free rusher, even though there's an isolated lineman. The Rams knew they wanted to do this, and it was just a matter of when they were going to do it. They must have been waiting to make this play since the first quarter. Like, after the first drive, once they realized that the Bears were going to slant everything towards Donald, because as you see, Donald's not even getting blocked. You have 2 inactive linemen, primarily because of the way that the Bears have set up their offensive line. So you know what? Coward kind of does his thing here. He takes the inside guy. So does Leno. And that means that, as you probably have already seen, Foles has to release this ball before Darnell Mooney's ever gotten out of his break. Like, this is an incredibly difficult throw, and it's a very good play by the Rams. That's not to say that Foles couldn't have potentially arced it more. There's obviously more that he could have done. It's more to say that of all the plays to criticize a Nick Foles for, this is a tough one, because the Rams defense bluffs a beautiful blitz. Cody Whitehair never sees it. That means that the line is set with this. Let me take you back, and I'll show you a lot of times how the line often sets themselves up. So they basically try to find the Mike linebacker, so to speak, and in their eyes, based on the way Cody's probably called this, Allen Robinson is being matched up one-on-one by this guy, and they're not considering him part of the play. So exactly like you're saying, Jay, you can't just float the ball too much. The way that I've been phrasing it is, if this right here is Aaron Rodgers and this right here is Devontae Adams, he might just know what to do with the ball. Instead, they might know each other well enough to make this play off of chemistry and chemistry alone. But instead, it's Nick Foles throwing to Darnell Mooney, who he's been throwing to for 4 weeks, and the ball doesn't get quite lofted enough. If you ask me, I think Foles is throwing it away with a hope that maybe it gets completed out of flat-out magic, but it's not, and the Bears miss an opportunity. And sure, it's a missed opportunity, but it's also a really good play by a Rams defense that is just reading them like a book. And like you guys talked about, I mean, somebody said this earlier, that at some point you start to wonder why we keep running the ball as much as we do on early downs, when, to go all the way back to it, a very, 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 very common West Coast play is to just do this. I mean, this is so easy. Just a quick line up in the shotgun. In this case, I had no idea they line up in an I formation sort of look. Oh boy, this is all that formation shifting people get frustrated with. But anyways, so they line up in quick 11 personnel with 1 tight end and 1 running back, and all they're going to have him do is just sit down on stick. It is as easy as it gets, and it gets 6 yards. How much are we getting by running the ball? 2 yards, maybe 3. But at some point I just want to see us throw the ball more, weirdly enough, especially on those early downs, because you're getting more yards doing that anyways. But yeah, so the Bears offense was bad. The worst part is that it just was kind of soulless. I couldn't really tell you what the Bears were trying to do most of this game because I don't know if the Bears, like, I don't know if this Bears team knows what they're good at. They keep shifting personnel. They keep shifting personnel. They keep changing up their formations. They keep throwing different stuff at the books. I'm not 100% sure who they think their best 11 players are. And in this case, sure, you'll get the occasional neat play call where Demetrius Harris sits down on a play exactly like this. You can work with this stuff. I've never said that the Bears offense is like hopelessly bottom hold, like there's a sink or there's a hole in the ship or whatever, but I would love to see more play action. I think they're better out of 11 personnel because if you asked me, the Bears best players are not, take a look at this. So the players that are on the field in this case, and I may have said this earlier, but I'll reiterate it because I think it's important. The players on this field are Jimmy Graham, who is known for being a bad run blocker. Demetrius Harris, who has struggled this entire year, and it may only be 12, as a matter of fact, because we've got two receivers over here. But either way, we're running a play in this moment that says that we think Jimmy Graham and Demetrius Harris and Charles Leno are good enough to set up this run block. And again, even if I'm using like Charles Leno correctly, I'm using him as a pass blocker and not as a run blocker. Like, you don't need to be lead blocking with Charles Leno. You're kind of setting yourself up for problems there. And Leno does enough. I'm not trying to, oh no, he doesn't. But I think Leno gets a lot of heat because he gets put out of position all the time, and I would love to see. The Bears draft an offensive tackle, sure, but I don't think an elite offensive tackle suddenly makes this play good. Does that make sense? Like, the Bears, somebody said it earlier, stick is incredibly hard to cover. But instead, and believe it or not, Harris is not paid well. He's paid like minimum salary. Jimmy Graham is not a good run blocker, and we know this. He loses his block. Charles Leno, not a great run blocker. He loses his block. These two over here, or what is it? We've got Jermaine Ifedi getting beat by Aaron Donald by the looks of it over here, and so Montgomery cuts this thing back, and Demetrius Harris, thank heavens he put a hand on that guy because he's still able to make the play. You get the idea. Like, the running plays that we're calling, the best way that the Bears could operate is to just run out of the shotgun on 11 if we are going to run the ball at all. Like you're saying, Jay, there's plenty of throwing options that the Bears have. Their best players are probably their receivers, but instead, Jack, that's uncalled for. There's no reason for that. But so anyways, if the Bears run out of 11, at least they won't get these this box isn't even all that stacked. At this point, the Rams are well aware that it might be play action, and it's probably the better call to run the ball. I'm trying to analyze this as we go, and in fact, it's a 2nd and 2, so the Bears do get what they want here. I've said a lot, but to just talk back through it, because it does look like all they're trying to do is get here. They do get there against a soft box. This is about as good a time as you're going to get to run it, but man, like, there's tons of stuff that we could do instead, like you're talking about. wait, Michael, I've never heard that before. Incompletrius Harris, that is hilarious. That's the best descriptor of him so far. But so anyways, yeah, I don't know why Cole Kmet isn't taking Harris's snaps, but this is the personnel package that the Bears ought to line up in more. And granted, I wish that it wasn't 12. I wish that this was Jimmy Graham or Cole Kmet. But take a look at this. If the Bears did want to run the ball, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 on 6. 6 is a much easier way to run the football. And especially like 7 on 7, you lose more yards more often than you win. 8 on 8, it's incredibly hard to win the ball. Everybody, if you stop talking to him, there's no worries. You don't need to engage any trolls. But so at this point, the Bears are able to start moving the ball, working their way down the field. Foles is generally holding up his end of the bargain, certainly. But so at this point, the Bears, I think they get a decent running play because they do decide to run it outside, and Harris is able to make a nice cut block. And this is where, you know what, I don't know. there's not a ton to complain about here. This is actually decent. The Bears offense starts to call more plays with a bit more creativity. That slice block is nice. The linebacker doesn't seem like he sees it coming. Again, this is a shotgun run out of 11 personnel. And the Bears are able to make a play out of it because it's 6-on-6. This is 6 men in the box, 6 men on the line with Harris coming across right there. And as you guys have seen, that opens up the ability to make a play even with a lot of chaos because there's less bodies there dragging people down. It's a nice cut for sure. But yeah, at some point, I just want to see the Bears commit to something because if they go 11 personnel the overwhelming majority of the time, I think they're going to be a lot more successful. And that's okay. I don't think we need to trade for Poe, right? Not only is Poe not great, I think he's overweight, but I'm pretty sure he's mostly living on name at this point. So again, we got shotgun out of 11, and the Bears are able to draw a pass interference because they just kind of keep grinding their way down the field. 11 personnel and no huddle, like y'all are talking about. If you run this no huddle 11 personnel look, it seems like not only what Foles is most comfortable with, but what the Bears are so far good at. And you can still run play action out of this formation. Like, you can still have David Montgomery roll over here and the whole Bears offensive line cut this way as if it's outside zone. That's possible. Not every play action fake has to be from under center with somebody rolling out like in the big old thing. But so instead, you can easily run play action out of this, but the shotgun passes aren't that bad either, and the line they allow some pressure. I'm not about to pretend they don't. What is it? This is Massey getting beat by Floyd again. Leno gives a little too much, but Foles gets the ball out. Allen Robinson tries to come back for the ball, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is pretty well placed overall. So this is exactly that throw you want to try to draw pass interference with, and I'll credit Foles with it because it doesn't go down as an incompletion, but that's his third game in 4 weeks. Somebody correct me if he did one of these against the Panthers too, but against the Colts, against the Bucks, and now against here, Foles got a 30-yard completion through pass interference, which is solid, and you take those. But so then after a pretty good run here on 1st and 10, where credit to him, I think it's an RPO. I'll need to take another look at it. Let's see. Watch the offensive. Yeah, okay, so Foles is going to read Leonard Floyd right here, and he sees him coming in, so he's going to throw it out to Demetrius Harris. Because he does that, this is that standard RPO action that we've kind of grown to see. Harris, not a dynamic athlete, at least makes a play in space and makes it work. James, thank you. I really love reading that. But so now it's 2nd and 4, and oh boy, like this is what is it? This is a problem. So I talked to a friend of mine. This is bad. So it's not good on Foles because Darnell Mooney is not open. You don't need to throw this ball. You probably didn't need me to tell you that. But it's basic. But let me just walk you through what it is before I tell you what a friend of mine thinks. So this is Darnell Mooney running that route. Miller coming over here and running a short combo. This combo, again, short slant and big slant, is called smash. And that's the thing, Jay. Jay, you stole it out of my mouth. It is... this is a bad play call. I've got a friend of mine. If you guys follow him, his name is, you can follow him on Twitter at bpeters. And then I'll need to take a look at what the numbers are afterwards. But this is a sprint rollout smash combo in the end zone that has no answer for zone man coverage. Because if Mooney gets man coverage, which he does, there's not a place to go with it. He gets this off man. This guy's going to play it perfectly, and Mooney's never open. Again, no, Foles shouldn't throw this. But we are at this point, if memory serves, let's see. We are down. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to credit Foles, but we are down 2 scores, and I understand him wanting to force it into the end zone. Might be B. Peters 33. Yeah, he's one of my favorite people, and whenever I have a question about play calling or how things work, I go ask him, because he's basically like super big brain football play calling guy that he literally wrote the book on the Bears 2018 offense, and it's an overwhelming reason of why I know as much as I do about a lot of football. But so this play call doesn't give Foles a lot of options, which is a huge problem. Noah, you could have, but if they had called this for DPI, personally, I would have had a problem with it, because I always try to think of it as like, if you reverse the jerseys, what would you think? And if I reverse the jerseys, and that's Jayla Johnson, I would be so mad if it was defensive pass interference. I don't think that's what Foles is looking for. I think Foles, because if you take a look at when he actually throws the ball, I'll stop it. Let's get there. Okay, when Foles throws the ball, Mooney hasn't broken yet. So he is hoping, to be fair, that Mooney beats his man with magic. So he doesn't necessarily know whether he's going to. He just throws up what more or less is a prayer, and the prayer is not answered, as we can see, which is a problem. It's not great, because you know that a lot of times in these end zone situations, again, this is where Bobby's knowledge trumps mine. Most of the time you get a lot of man, because since you have the end zone right back here and so much less space to cover, man coverage helps you lock things down, which is great. And like you're saying, Zach, as soon as you roll this play to the left, you're basically denying this whole side of the field, because Foles is not going to plant his feet and throw back in that direction. You'd have to really know. So like you're saying, Ravi, even you're pointing it out. Why isn't Graham in on this play? I couldn't tell you. That's exactly why I would look at this and say it's a problematic play call. And no, Foles shouldn't throw it. That doesn't excuse him. But I also understand that Foles is trying to make a play. He's forcing a ball into coverage, hoping that Mooney just comes up with it. And to be totally fair, this is how he made that exact same play with Cole Kmet earlier in the game, and it totally doesn't work. It's a play call that I don't want to see Foles running. It's not a play call that sets him up well, or especially with just two viable receivers in man coverage, off man in particular, because holy moly, it just doesn't, this play call in particular doesn't set the Bears up for success. This is going to cover that short out route. This guy obviously plays beautiful, beautiful man coverage on Darnell Mooney. And again, if I reverse the jerseys, I'm complimenting the heck out of the defense. And this is one of those plays that I just don't want to see, because it doesn't set up an already immobile quarterback for success. Of course, I'd love for him to throw it away. Of course, that would put it 3rd and 4, which is problematic enough. But Foles is just looking to make a play. That's not how you need to do it, and it felt desperate, which you don't need that. But so at this point, y'all, we could keep going. I could keep talking about the goods and the bads, because there were some things. But if you ask me, so I'll give you some numbers. At this moment, Nick Foles is 16th in play action percentage. Most other quarterbacks are at around 30 to 40%. Some at 25, Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, they're at 26%. I would love to see the Bears bump up again to 25 to 30%. Use more play action. It helps out your offensive line. And let's take a look. But so the trouble with A-Rob is that most quarterbacks in these settings are, what is it? So I'm watching, it doesn't really look like Robinson's open on this play. In fact, it doesn't look like he ran a route, but yeah. So the trouble here is that most quarterbacks, and I totally understand incongruencies and how it's hard to understand sometimes, because you see guys like Russell Wilson that might take this and just roll it back the other way and go make a play with their feet. But a guy like Nick Foles is basically just going to run the play, and if the play doesn't work, it doesn't work. And all he's able to do is just read these two defenders in man coverage, and obviously nothing's there. So what he should do is to throw this into the stands. But what he does do instead is he forces it to a guy that isn't open. We've covered it, but it doesn't look like Robinson's there. Yes. So we do have a Discord, and we'll get to that in a little bit, or as we start to kind of close up. Noah, it's funny. I wish that I could be the guy who says oh, I have just the play call, but play calling is tough, and I'm still getting there. What I can say is that Foles loves meshing action, so you could potentially pull Mooney across there, try to get a pick with Robinson, and if one of these two breaks open, great. You could potentially have off of that same meshing action. So if you did that, you could have Miller run a dig route right there and just sit down. There are other things you could do. But so let's see. Oh, I have no idea why we did that, Jay. But so anyways, there are exactly 2 routes in the red zone against man coverage. There's a lot of things that you could do instead. But I could keep walking you guys through this. What I'll tell you is the only thing that I haven't said about this offense. Oh, here's a play that I think is kind of funny, by the way. So you want to talk about how every once in a while just chucking the ball downfield rewards you. So let's watch this play. Look at this. Nice, solid throw to Allen Robinson. Bang, completion. Well, if we take a look at the All-22, I want you to watch this safety because he just blows it up. Like he does a bad job, and I'm okay saying that, where he gets smoked for no reason. Like he must expect Allen Robinson to fade out this way, but he doesn't. So instead, Robinson runs right over the top of him, and what should have been an interception instead is a nice catch. So the trouble here is that this is when we start to see the offensive line get really, really porous. Mustafer's already in, but in this case, I think it's Leno that gives up pressure. But either way, if you watch Foles' footwork, I'll try to highlight it here. So Foles' footwork gets really, really bad. So right here, for instance, he doesn't step into his throw primarily because Rashad Coward has allowed number 90 to just get right up in his grill. And it's not Leno, turns out. But so exactly. He's basically bending backwards as he releases this ball. And Robinson, to be fair, does have to slow down for it. But he makes a play on a nice ball in the air. If you watch this the other way, it's a problem. So I said it wrong. Leno doesn't really do anything wrong here. Leno escorts his guy inside as it's Rashad Coward that gives up a hard stunt to number 90, and Foles just has to get rid of the ball and try not to get hit because he got sick of getting hit. And if you watch the rest of the fourth quarter, you start seeing a whole lot of things where Nick Foles isn't driving his feet in throws because he thinks he's going to get hit. And he's not wrong in a lot of these cases, which is a huge problem. I mean, it's funny you say that it looked like a Mitch throw, Daniels, because I hate to be that guy. Mitch probably throws it about 3 yards too far and the ball doesn't get caught. At least if you're going to throw it poorly, underthrow it. I know it can get picked, but I prefer to let the guys make plays on balls in the air. But so the Bears go back to a heavy set. They hand the ball off. They start to get something going. And actually, it looks like, okay, no, yeah. This is another example, weirdly enough, of just playing out of 11. Because it looks like Graham, but they're only up against a 6-man box, and would you believe it, they get a hole, even with Sam Mustafer, even with, even with Sam Mustafer and Rashad Coward here, they're able to create a hole because of a 6-man box. It sounds so simple, right? Like just play out of 11 and from there you're able to generate these smaller boxes that allow you to run into them. I know I'm making it sound simple, but right now there's tons of analytical information that's basically saying the more that you can spread the defense out, the better. And it's funny you say that because Jay, at this point, early in the fourth quarter, Donald's still playing, Floyd's still playing, Johnson's still playing. The Rams are actually fielding their players. It looks like it's all prevent defense. It's not. And granted, they're probably okay giving something up. If they do, they're going to survive and say it's 3-24. We're fine. But running out of 11 has a lot more advantages than running out of these heavy sets. To me anyways, it's not that hard. And this is another one of those RPOs. Really quick action right here where I think they get Floyd pinching down too hard. Yeah, so they catch him in no man's land. Quick option out to Jimmy Graham. He gets 4 yards. Not a bad play. But so at this point, the Bears are moving, and then they foul up in the end zone. I think partially because they go heavy set and they try to gain some yards. I could be wrong before. Yeah, they do. and Rashad Coward blows his block, like, badly. Take a look right here. So Aaron Donald is up against Rashad Coward, and Charles Leno is expecting him to at least get a piece of him. He doesn't. Instead, you're going to see Rashad Coward just fans on it. Leno then, thinking that he was going to be in a different place, doesn't get enough. And then from there, Monty can't make a play on it. And again, I don't mean to say the same thing over and over, but here we are with eight men near the box and another uncovered guy in the 9th position. And when the Bears run this ball, partially because they're not very good, they end up with 3 potential guys that can spill in the hole. Even if Donald gets covered, this is going nowhere. And I understand wanting to have a grindy attitude, but you don't need this. Like, these heavy sets aren't doing anything for the Bears. And just because you line up a bunch of tight ends, like in this case it's Kmet and Harris, doesn't mean that they can just do much. And they make their blocks okay, but take a look at this. Because they've drawn so much attention into the box, even the fact that Harris and Kmet are controlling their men just doesn't really make a difference. And it's not an RPO. This is a straight handoff, and you can spread this out with 11 personnel because at least it gives the Bears something to build on. It helps them simplify, use less packages. This is, I think this is 11. Yeah, this is. With Jimmy Graham, this is 11 personnel on 3rd down, and what you're about to see, once again, you know, it's funny, you say that, Jared. Somebody asked earlier, what could you do in the end zone? This isn't bad. This is a sprint out ISO one-on-one. So basically, this is Anthony Miller one-on-one. He's going to try to beat his man with a comeback route. And somebody asked earlier, what am I using to look at this? This is NFL Game Pass, which if you like football and film, it's absolutely essential. But so Foles gets the right, or puts the throw more or less into the right place as he rolls out and just fires for the corner. And Miller comes back to try to get it, and he just didn't get enough separation on his guy because that's kind of the Bears' offense, right? There's something to say about the fact that not only out of 11 personnel, but the Bears just didn't make plays when they need to. 31 up here, he covers Miller really well. Miller in the past has made really nice play. In fact, I'll show you. You want to believe, or if you, in case you think that that's not a very good end zone play, I'll take you back to tell me it's 16. It's 16, where the Bears are able to score a touchdown off of the same play, functionally speaking. Let's see. I think it's the 3rd quarter. Been wrong before. Miller, it's not. If y'all remember before me, let me know. But I think it's early-ish in the game. Yeah, it's this one. But so, what about week 5? I'm curious. But so, that's a nice end zone one-on-one. I don't know why the quality is so bad, but again, you're going to see Miller in an ISO one-on-one who's just going to run a comeback route, and he smokes his dude. Like, he just beats the 49er corner really badly. That's the goal of the play. And so that's wide open. It's the same thing. You just take a shot with it. And Adam, it's very similar at a minimum. In this case against the Rams, the Bears just weren't able to come up with the plays. And part of it, like, yeah, you could blame Anthony Miller, but he doesn't get separation. It happens. And then the Bears go to 4th down, and on this 4th down, I think they get blasted, but I've been there. No, I remember it because I watch a lot of Bears football. Oh yeah, I hated this play call. So what I hate about this is that Jimmy Graham is going to saunter across the line in motion, and then when he does, he's going to just run this dig route thing that the Rams see coming. And I mean, it's as obvious as it gets, guys. Like, this is so obvious, where he runs across, and would you believe it, he's running into the middle, and there's 3 Rams sitting around waiting for him, and these 2 are fouled up over here. Massey's already getting beaten by Leonard Floyd, and Allen Robinson actually doesn't get a whole lot of space either, as he's pretty jammed up. And sure, like a friend of mine said when I was reviewing this with him last night, at this point you could wonder if Foles could just lob something up and try to get that ball in the back shoulder, but Jalen Ramsey is watching the quarterback and Allen Robinson is not. there's something to be said for the fact that there's just nothing doing on this play. The Bears offense is not good enough. I think a lot of it's because they're disjointed. They try to do too much with heavy sets. They don't need to do so much with heavy sets. Like, stick with 11. 11 works. It gives you a place to build off of, and at least when your guys, because eventually you're going to run into these issues where a guy like Anthony Miller isn't going to beat a solid corner in number 31. A guy like Allen Robinson, sure, occasionally Jalen Ramsey's going to beat him. That's okay. You can survive these. At that point, you can survive because the rest of the plays you run, you just put your guys in the best chance they can to succeed. That best chance is not 13 personnel, and I need to see Matt Nagy change it because I'm quickly losing faith that he's seeing what I'm seeing and is instead just throwing things at a wall and saying, heavy personnel, that why not? Like, let's just go with it. And it's tough. But yeah. Yeah, the line definitely starts to struggle. What somebody said, Mooney, let me see. Oh yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Mooney does get open, but the problem is he gets open for a quarterback that's still in the pocket. This is a sprint rollout. It's a one-man route, basically. And that's why Foles throws it basically as Miller's turning around. The whole goal is that they meet at the pylon. And maybe you could say that you want to see Foles get this ball like over the line so that Miller has a little more room to stretch out for it because this cornerback just barely gets his hand in. But again, that's where I would look at you and I would say, we're well aware that Nick Foles is an Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, he's more accurate than Trubisky has been, and that's about as good as you're going to get. At that point, you just want to see Miller generate more separation than he does. He doesn't. And so I look at this game, and you know what? The more we review the film, like, there's a ton of problems. You cannot have this double timeout sequence right here in the middle of the game. You can't have these guys getting lost here 4 weeks into the Foles offense and 7 weeks into the season where you blow 2 timeouts just because. You can't have... I don't quite know what it is. Good night, Ian or Elon. I'll get the Discord promoted here in a little bit. But no worries, boss. Good to see you. There's tons of these plays that I look at all throughout the game where it felt as if Matt Nagy almost thought his own offense wasn't very good. And that's a huge pain because obviously the offense needs to believe that it is pretty good. And the second half had some life, but we need to see more of that against the Saints. And again, and if there's one thing I haven't covered, because this is the play where the Bears just let the clock run out instead of trying to make a play at the end. I mean, there's tons of this stuff. I am going to upload this, Brandon, every time. You can count on that. But so at some point, you want to see the Bears improve and find an identity. I really believe they can find an identity out of 11 personnel with play action. You can even run 11 personnel under center. Like, you can switch back and forth between shotgun and under center from there. You run Jimmy Graham, the 5 offensive linemen, David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, and Anthony Miller, if I've counted correctly. And if not, you take Miller off. That is a stable foundation of some of your best players to work with. I wish we had Tariq Cohen back in this offense. I would love to see that, but we don't. And so you got to work with the best thing you have. The best players you have aren't Demetrius Harris. You can throw in Cole Kmet on the occasional 12 package where maybe you split Graham out and you put Kmet on the end. But 11 personnel keeps the box nice and thin. That lean box is easier to run into. I don't know if you guys know this, by the way, but did you know that out of 11 personnel, the Bears have... DG, I have no idea why he doesn't do that. And he is incredibly ham-fisted with Cordero Patterson. I'll tell you that one thing that you guys may not know, out of 11 personnel, the Bears have a 5.8 yard per carry on the ground. Think about that. It's not 5.8, it's 5.2 yards per carry on the ground out of 11. I'm not saying this just because. Like, I want to see the Bears find something that they're good at doing and keep doing it, because between quick passing and shotgun and West Coast out of 11, it gives you the ability to build a foundational offense and then start running cool things like they did in 2018, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Maybe he is, Jay, but that's okay. Like, even what we're doing here is predictable. When the Bears run up, or when the Bears line up, I don't even have to look that hard, I'm sure. Let me put it this way. When the Bears line up in this right here, what do you think they're going to do? I think they're going to run it. They think they're going to run it, and they make a play on the run. As much as I'd love to pretend it's less predictable to run everything out of one formation, this is pretty predictable. Like, it's not very good. And honestly, I really thought that the offense, like, it had some nice moments. It showed some fight here and there, but it needs some consistency. And I think that there's a good way to consistently you can create some of that consistency if the coach allows the Bears, especially Nick Foles, who seems to like the hurry up offense, to just stick with a unit of personnel per drive, say these are the guys we're running with, we're going to run this all out of 11, we've got like 15 to 20 plays that work out of 11, and just go from there. What did somebody, or are we talking about Mustafa? So they are running RPOs. I think more RPOs could be helpful, but really I think that they just need to spread things out. All this idea of, hey, we're going to run a running play on first down, so let's line up in a heavy set and just slam it down their gut. It's not working. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. We can call it quits on the whole, like, let's run the ball on the obvious downs thing. And then at this point, so I'm not near as much of a Cowboys fan as I am a Bears fan. In case anybody's curious, I am a Cowboys fan because I'm from Texas and my mom is a Cowboys fan. But I really just watch the Bears. Wait a minute. Jay, you mean the fact that we would stick out of one formation and so on and so forth? It's kind of similar to the John Fox offense, but the John Fox, oh no, you mean the part where you're going to say, like, I'm going to line up in a heavy set and run it. That's very John Fox. Absolutely. Just running on first down and whatnot. So at this point, I think I'm just going to roll some plays while I talk about things, because the back half of the game, normally I don't want to, I don't like analyzing things in like the fourth quarter, because I do think past a certain point, guys get gassed. They go, it's 3-24. We're not winning. In this play in particular, Allen Robinson's actually kind of open. Foles at this point is just trying to ditch the ball. Like, he hit this point where Foles said, I don't trust this offensive line. I don't like it. I'm sitting in my end zone. I'm going to get this ball out of bounds. And Allen Robinson's actually kind of open. But Foles hit this point again where he really started to unravel a bit down the stretch. And you know what? Credit to Foles. He left the pocket, Davon, because he doesn't trust it. He thinks that Rashad Coward's right on the verge of getting beat, and Coward holds, and that surprises him, I'm convinced. But instead, he runs right into Donald, basically just leaves the tackle box and throws it away. I mean, it's trouble. I mean, it's not good, but hopefully with a week of practice, they're able to stabilize things. Again, if they cut down on some of the formations, run what they're good at, they could really start to build something here. But instead, you're about to see a whole lot of pressure. Again, this is a Miller. It's kind of an underthrow. Miller might have been able to make a play on it, but in this case, this is Massey getting beat by Leonard Floyd again. Foles isn't able to step into his throw again, and instead he throws kind of fading away, and Miller, who gets his opportunity downfield, is he's left a little too far. If the ball goes out a little further, he might be able to get it. But again, whether you can say that Foles is not playing well at this point, that's okay. Doesn't hurt my feelings. I thought he played fine for 3 quarters. But around here, things start to unravel. Foles clearly doesn't trust his line. Pressure comes from all over the place, like almost on a down-to-down basis. And we'll see that as this continues. And it just gets bad. And I wish that I could say it doesn't, but at least they're spreading out the formations and that they can keep things moving. In this one, they might run play action. No. Okay. This is the kind of thing that I look at. Here's a pass call that I don't understand. I don't know if this is Mustafa or not, but this is one that I noticed where, and thanks so much, Jared. Have a great night. I know I started late. So, This is a line call starting from the center that I don't know if he gets it wrong, but what you're about to see is a 5-man blitz from this, of course, Floyd, who's coming from Oklahoma out here, and Aaron Donald, this guy, that guy, and that guy. And what you're going to see for some reason is that Mustafa and Coward are going to take this guy, Leno's going to take this guy, and Foles has to handle a free rush, even though it's 5-on-5. I don't know why. I really don't know why. That this is the way the Bears work on this play. I don't know if it's a poor line call. I don't know if they were expecting something else. I don't know if it's because of the stunt, but I think, and I've sent this to Lester Wiltfong, my boss, and he doesn't really know either, because Leno turns, immediately picks up his assignment, and again, off of a 5v5, Foles has to handle a back jumping free rusher, and at least he's able to get the ball out for a couple yards. I don't know. I don't know why this happened. And so I have no idea, Andrew. The line seemed a lot less confused when Whitehair was in the game, which I think is credit to him. But yeah, at least Mustafa did block his guy. One thing that I will say is that, yeah, he very well may have stoop, that he saw that Coward just made a mistake. That's the best option Lester and I could come up with. But I just wanted to present it as I don't know, because I don't know. So at this point, this becomes almost the best protection that you're going to see, and yikes, this is the play that, of course, puts Allen Robinson potentially out for this week, doesn't even draw a flag, which is a huge bummer. But so at this point, basically every single play from here, something goes wrong. In this case, it's Ifedi, lets Donald walk him right back into Foles, which, hey, you know what? Jermaine Ifedi on Aaron Donald, that's about as good as you're going to ask for. But so this next one, or somewhere around here, we get an interception, and it's super bad. But yeah, he turns it out, and then Coward blocks down. That very well could have been. And if that's the case, Stoop, Leno needs to join Quiz Bowl, because that was an absolutely insane reaction time. But so from here, let's see. Davon, what are you saying? Yeah, he does, but that's who Foles is. If he had a stronger arm, he'd be better. But at least he's accurate is basically where the Bears are at. We all know he's not super great, and I would tell you that, but I think he's good enough to mirror the offensive scheme and personnel. So I want to see the Bears improve on that. In this one in particular, Foles just gets antsy in the pocket and just throws up a duck. So let's see. Oh, Samir, it's because I'm a Bears fan and I'm trying to grow the channel through just focusing my craft on one team before I potentially break things out over the offseason. Because of how, I try to really go in detail, as you can tell, breaking down not only each individual play, but trying to understand the play calls. For instance, I sent this one out. This is what's called a scissors action. So you're going to get, let me wind it back a little bit. So this play call involves the following. So what you're about to see is that Mooney is going to run up, and then he's going to run a post. And then Jimmy Graham is going to run into the space that you would hope he vacates. The hope here is that Mooney runs his post, which I've now drawn 3 times, and he's going to drag his corner back here and this safety with him. The trouble is, and Alex, you kind of hit on it, is that I'm pretty sure Foles throws it early because he knows that tons of pressure is coming, because as you can see, both Leno has given up way too much ground here, and Massey has given up a free run at Foles, and so he kind of steps forward, or not really, and just throws it early. The trouble is that the corner, I think it's Ramsey, knows this. So he doesn't follow Darnell Mooney at all. And so he just sits in that space and ends up making a play on the ball that isn't particularly accurate either. It might be just accurate enough based on the way Graham moves, but this is another prayer, which is a problem. So of course you don't. Right. That's the trouble here, is that you could look at this and say, I would like if Foles didn't do this. And I look at it and I say, goodness, this guy had pressure on 4 out of 5 snaps, which is a huge problem. Of course I would, this play needs to be read better, basically in the world of cover 2, cover 4, because you're not 100% sure if this is cover 2 or cover 4, and Ramsey, to his credit, doesn't give anything away. And you know what, Alex? I do care about other teams. And Samir, go ahead and let me know like what you're doing in terms of like which team you follow. But so Foles could step up. The trouble is, Davon, is that he's going to blow the timing, because if he steps up, it's going to take about a half second at least, if not a little more. Thank you so much, Samir. And he ought to either. So what Bobby thinks he ought to do is just hit the check down. Like, it's not that difficult. And Miller comes open, but Miller comes open in the sense that he's about to die. So if the tackles hold, I think Foles would have read that Ramsey was all over this play and gone back to Miller. But instead, he basically just throws up a prayer and like lets this thing go. When realistically, like looking at the end zone cam, like he hesitates there. At that point, just get the ball out to your check down. You already know it's a problem. So, oh, thanks. That's really cool. Yeah, I love doing this breakdown kind of stuff. But so this is a play where, again, like there's a chance you could step into this pocket, but Foles has basically been harassed from the interior for so long, I'm not surprised he doesn't trust it. Either way, I never said it's a good play on Foles' part. I just like looking at this kind of stuff and trying to understand what's going on in the play. He releases this ball a little early, like a hair early, and what is it? Ramsey is all over this play. There's a reason Jalen Ramsey is known as one of the best corners of the game. And he makes a really nice play here off of that. And it's good work on his part. Of course, you'd love for, I guess, better from Foles, but I'd also love to see a little better from both tackles, not going to lie. Like, we'll take one more look at it from this angle, and then we can move on. But, exactly. Davon, you've got it. Like, around this point in the fourth quarter, he just started to get crushed. He knew he had a backup center. He knew he had Rashad Coward in the game. This drive in particular is pretty sad. I'll just let it roll in the background, because if there's one thing I'm worried about when it comes to our game against the Saints, it's the fact that, man, oh man, this Bears offensive line really struggled. In that case, Mustipher holds on to his man like just enough, but he still gets in Foles' business. Foles' footwork, if you watch it, like you can just go and pay attention to his feet. It kind of starts to fall apart, and you're going to see a lot more of these throws. Foles is just whipping it around, which is not great. But so at that point, the Bears were good. Thanks so much, Tom. That was really kind of you to say. I thought the Bears didn't have a very good game on defense, but the McVay and whatnot really smashed it. Like, they did a great job in this play. You can watch. Ooh, this one's bad in particular. I will break this down. The Rams run a stunt that completely beats Rashad Coward as he tries to pass it off to Mustipher, who isn't ready for it. 90 ends up bearing down, and he smokes Foles right there, who releases a ball a little too high, partially because of it, but Mooney makes a nice play on the air. Massive credit to Darnell Mooney. Darnell was great. Like, he was really, really awesome. And but Foles basically just starts to take a beating here, and he gets pressure. Like, I tried to mark down all the different times that the Bears let up pressure, and in the fourth quarter, it was like play. Like, wow, they got smacked. And the trouble is, Andrew, is that, football is a game of punch, counterpunch. The Bears made a bunch of nice stops at the 40, and credit to them for that, but it's tough to adjust to something when you haven't seen it before. So the Bears basically got play action run on them over and over, which was really good on their part. And the Rams were just able to make plays, partially because they had a running game that they were able to just gut the Bears with almost at will. And it's a tough game for the defense. It wouldn't surprise me if they come out of here and they try to do better against the Saints. I think that the Bears defense is good enough to respond. Here's another blitz where, as you see, Floyd's bearing down immediately on this, and the Rams are able to squeeze out a quick completion to Montgomery, because Floyd immediately, he doesn't beat Leno. Leno sifts in to try to get the blitz, and instead it doesn't go well. Yeah, the Rams did have a really good game plan. The Bears tried to go at him. The Bears tried to establish the tempo, and the Rams just took advantage of it. Like, I can't credit Sean McVay enough. He looked extremely good. Like, his offense was on point. They were firing, which is awesome. Again, if you're enjoying the stream, please just go ahead and let me know. Let me know by liking it. That would be especially great. But the Bears at this point were marching down. I think they're running out of 11. They might even be running. Yeah, okay, so they've got 11 with a split back, and the line's either getting walked into his lap or he's distributing the ball. He's getting just enough. But let's see. Davon, I kind of think you're being too hard. Or at least my opinion. I get what you're saying about Foles calling the line protections, and I think he's trying to, but at this point, it's a 3-24 game, and as a human being, if he's sitting back there just like, I don't want to get a hit anymore, I'd kind of understand. Like, this play sort of shows you where the Bears are at right now. This is just this flat-out desperation heave. Like, the Bears are just trying to create something. Time is dwindling down. I think there's like, let's see. Yeah, there's like 2 minutes left, and they're down 2 full scores. So at this point, they're just trying to create something. Foles throws into clear double coverage. It's funny. DVOA, just to respond to you, that's EJ. He asks, where would you rank the Bears defense? So I at this point, let's see. The trouble is, I'll answer EJ's question first. The Rams defense, I think it's better than it looks. They've got some players that can take people away. And with Donald up front, and even just Ramsey in the back end, let alone John Johnson, who, again, take a look at this play. I'm going to be shocked if Johnson does anything wrong. John Johnson, 43, has insane range. He's able to track with just about anybody. He gets right over the top of Darnell Mooney from way over on the other side of things. As simple as it sounds, he was able to play a very tight game that not every NFL safety can. Instead, he takes this angle away before it ever even materializes, and Foles has released the ball well ahead of schedule. Man, John Johnson is, like, the more film I'm watching of him in particular, he's very, very, very good. So, and Deadly, you are exactly right. If I go to the broadcast, I get demonetized. So then somebody said, what if you put in Mitch? So in theory, maybe you do. The trouble is that if it was Chase Daniel, I think he goes in the game. But because it's Mitch Trubisky, you don't want to split the locker room. This team is still probably pretty loyal to Mitch, all things told. Just taking a guess as I am. By the way, if you want to see David Montgomery get devastated on a block, like, take a look at this one in particular. You can go ahead and watch Montgomery here as he tries to step in, and he gets flattened as Foles gets rid of the ball, taking more pressure. But so if you put in Mitch, and Mitch does make a play, now you have a quarterback controversy on your hands. So you're not putting in Tyler Bray. At that point, it's just insulting, and what's the point of having Mitch on the roster? But my guess would be, from a management perspective, they're going to try to keep Mitch out of the game as much as possible, which, I mean, hey, there you go. Tom, I don't know. The best way I could put it is that Mitch had 3.5 years. Like, he had every ability to, what is it? Oh, yeah. Squad, you're totally right. Tua's going to really struggle with this defense. Like, it's a tough defense to start on, especially with Aaron Donald as good as he is. Is this one of the many sacks? Because they blitz, they get clean pressure, nothing's open. Yeah, this is basically what the Bears offense kind of turned into at the end, and they're doing their best, but it's a rough game. The offensive line really struggled. Most open receiver probably isn't out of their break yet, but even then he could drive on it. At this point, you're trying to time this up with Jimmy Graham, and this guy's basically pulling over on a crossing route. You're trying to time it up with Jimmy Graham's break, and at this point, Foles has already turned his shoulder because he's basically done, which, too bad. But yeah, so Foles is getting destroyed, and this is basically what the fourth quarter looked like, which isn't good. Floyd looked great. Classic revenge game. If I could show the broadcast, I would show just how excited he was. He loved this game. Look at that. Every single chance he got to celebrate, he was celebrating. Davon, he had 3 years. I mean, as much as people say the John Fox year doesn't count, take a look at Justin Herbert. Like, Herbert is throwing with accuracy. He's basically, as silly as it sounds, I think Justin Herbert's basically what Mitch would have looked like had he worked out. Justin Herbert's making plays with his legs. He's throwing with accuracy. When he gets the opportunity, he's converting it. And sure, John Fox and Mitch Trubisky didn't work well together, but at the same time, John Fox's whole critique was that Mitch wasn't ready. And here, 3 years later, we were having the same questions. It's tough. I didn't really expect Herbert either. Herbert basically was, though. Andrew, you've hit the nail on the head. Herbert basically was Mitch coming out of college. Like, there's a ton of similarities between the two. Difference is that Herbert made a lot of plays, and he's still making a lot of plays. And as simple as it sounds, that's kind of the difference sometimes. I'll put some more defense back on in the background. This is that second drive where, again, McVay and the Rams just worked off of every Bears tendency they could, and they really nailed it. I totally understand, by the way, any disagreement. If you think that Mitch is going to be successful somewhere else, I totally understand where you're coming from. The trouble is that the trouble in this case, when you look at Mitch, is that I think he got the perfect offense for him in those first 2.5 games, and he still didn't look very good in it. So, yeah. That's at least my take. Squad, I think you're totally right. Ramsey definitely guesses the pitch, is what I call it, where if he thinks that they're going to, if he thinks the receiver is going to run a comeback route, he's going to sit on it. And if that gets him beat, that gets him beat. And that's okay. But so, oh, yeah, don't get me wrong, Davon. Just because I don't think Mitch is very good doesn't mean that I think this offense is great either. Nagy really has to fix things because right now his play calling is way too disjointed, in my opinion, and it doesn't really have a soul. That's the way I would describe it. In 2018, it had an identity. It knew what it was trying to do. In 2020, I can tell you what I think the Bears would be best with. I think it's 11 personnel. I think I've said that probably 10 times at this point. But Nagy keeps trotting out these 13 personnels, these 12 personnels, and not every 12 personnel is bad, but he's cycling in so many different people and so many different players that at some point I look at it and I say, all right, we are let's just simplify things a little bit more. We can run no huddle with our best players. We don't have a ton of them left. We don't need Cordero Patterson taking what feels like every fourth carry or touch of the ball. Like, we can do this differently, and that's okay. And I want to see them do things differently, certainly against the Saints. They can't keep running the ball like they have against the Saints. Like, they are a problem. But especially against the especially against the running game. So at this point, I want to open it up to questions. It feels weird opening up to questions. I'll take like a couple because it is it is 11:40. So I totally understand, like, we're at the 2 hour, 20-minute mark. So feel free to ask some questions. I think there are better things that the Bears could do. My big question here, like, going forward, if I was going to say one more escape from Madhouse, that's exactly right. I can't wait. I can't wait to see that next Montgomery 1-yard run. But yeah, at this point, what I want to see is, no, Zach, it's not. I want it to be my full-time job. That's a great question. That's why I do these, and it's why I make videos and talk on Twitter and whatnot. I want to cover football full-time, but we'll get there brick by brick. Every like on the video, every time you share this to your friends, every time you do any of that, that helps a ton more than you know, and it ultimately helps promote the channel. But so, as far as, like, are we going to sign online or O-line? I sure hope so, but we haven't yet, which is a huge problem. And I think the Bears need to do something in offensive line, but it can't be too expensive because one of the best ways that they could address the offensive line is the 2021 draft, which is too bad. But hey, you got to go for it. Or like you got to make changes at some point. You usually need pretty solid draft capital to do that. And if the best way to do it is to overhaul it in the offseason, then that's what you got to do. But even so, guys like Spain and whatnot that were available to be signed, I think that those were easy layup signings that Pace didn't cash in on, and I couldn't tell you why. And yeah, Josh Reynolds was awesome. Not to mention, he played against Kyle Fuller that had been playing really, really great ball, which is a huge bummer to see for Bears fans. But I mean, hey, the hope is you're never as good or bad as your last game in the bad. Like, hopefully the Bears are able to rebound, basically. But so, let's see. Things went... Yeah, Derek, it definitely seemed like that when Nagy decided he was done with one-on-one. Like, I don't know what happened. I can tell you, and you can watch a bunch of my videos on it. I may make another one if y'all care to do, like, a true post-mortem, depending on how this goes. But, what is it? I got it. I can tell you that the Nagy offense tried to adapt to Mitch the entire year in 2019. It just never found anything that Mitch was comfortable doing, which was a huge pain and really kind of sad. But hey, it happens. So as far as the Saints playing their first game outside, I will tell you that if there's one thing I think the Bears have going for them, believe it or not, it has nothing to do with their team, believe it or not. I mean, technically it has to do with their defense. But when I look at the Bears, Camaro, that's a great question. I'll get to this in a second. So I'll put a pin in what I was about to say about the Saints game. The bright side about the Cowboys is that the Cowboys are starting to they're starting to lose so many games that there's a decent chance Dak Prescott, who at worst is a low-end franchise quarterback. Like, of course he'd be expensive, but he's a low-end franchise quarterback, could actually hit the open market. And so if Dak does that, that gives the Bears the opportunity. Sure, they'd have to do a lot of things to their cap if the cap space is as low as it's projected to be. But assume it's around 175 million, the Bears they could extend a whole bunch of people and make a play for Dak Prescott, and if they did that, they would get to keep their first-round pick. They wouldn't have to trade up. They wouldn't lose their 2022 second, or they wouldn't lose their 2021 first. Like, Tony, I agree. It would be dumb to let Prescott go, but if the Cowboys are 2-14 at the end of the year with Ben DiNucci, like, leading the show, why wouldn't they draft a quarterback? This quarterback draft is loaded, and the best way and the Bears could do it, to be clear. I agree. I get what you guys mean with Jerry needing to sign Dak, but think about it this way. Why would Dak sign with Dallas? They might tag him again, sure, but at that point, why not just which part being embarrassing, Ejo? At this point, I'm just watching the chat. But so at that point, I don't know why Dak would sign. I would almost think that Dak would want greener pastures somewhere else, and that he would then go pursue free agency, and the Bears could pick him up from there. Jay, it's a great question. Like, why not just draft a quarterback? I'll tell you exactly why. I can name like 7 teams that are going to have way more losses on their record. Like, way more losses on their record. The Vikings are going to have more losses. The Cowboys, the football team, probably. The Giants are in play for it. The Jets, the Jaguars, the Falcons. There are tons of teams that want to there are tons of teams that want a quarterback, and they're going to be looking for it. And there's only 4 in this draft that I think are really worth taking. And I'm not trying to spin on Mac Jones. Like, I'm not trying to say that Mac Jones and Kyle Trask aren't very good. I'm trying to say that if I was going to grade them, and I'm not a draft Nick, there are plenty of other guys that y'all could like find and that are better draft Nicks, like EJ Snyder or Jacob Infante. I could give you guys a list if you wanted, but at the end of the day, I think, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Brian Wilson, is his name Brian? But either way, yeah. So Fields, Lawrence, Wilson, and Trey Lance. Those are probably your top 4. And with 7 teams minimum higher up than the Bears could try to trade up to get them. But I think it's going to be slim pickings at quarterback. That's where the Dak Prescott idea comes in. I think, thank you, Zach Wilson. I'll take it. Brian Wilson's in a song. But so at that point, yeah, Akusi, I think Trevor Lawrence is playing chicken with the Jets, and I don't blame him. Or what is it, like, just like Mike, but you'll never be Brian Wilson. But anyways, I think that's where I'm getting the name from. At that point, I think that Prescott might be looking to back out, or like back off the Cowboys, go find greener pastures. Again, if he does that, think about this. What the Bears could do is they could back up the Brinks truck. They could sign Dak Prescott. First round, they could draft an offensive tackle. Second round, they could draft an offensive tackle. Third round, they could draft an offensive guard. They could just stuff a bunch of offensive line talent into this team with an immediate draft and infuse a ton of stuff. It would be, Chico, if we could find a way to get Justin Fields, but chances are the easier option is signing somebody like Prescott if he leaves, and then the Bears, out of absolutely nowhere, would have they would have a good, maybe not great, but good quarterback that's considered a franchise quarterback coming off an injury he should recover from. HW, I did. I read it and I took it. So thank you. But so at that point, the Bears would have that. They would have a much better offensive line, at least attempt to have a better offensive line. And from there, they might be able to cobble something together. Either way, hear me out. Like, I'll look you guys right in the webcam and say, if Matt Nagy can't show more offensive foundation, it doesn't really matter. And I don't know or if they're going to fire Matt Nagy. In fact, I can almost guarantee you that won't, because at this point, Matt Nagy is one of the winningest coaches in Bears history by winning percentage, and that doesn't just like go somewhere else. But so what I will say is that I need to see a little bit more out of Matt Nagy. This was a game that had a lot of complaints. I just spent the last like 2.5 years or not 2.5 years, 2.5 hours complaining about it. And there's plenty that we can do. But again, in free agency, there is real potential to upgrade a quarterback. And if not, you just build around Foles. You take a year, you lose some games, and you try to find your rookie quarterback, very similar to what that Alex Smith and the Chiefs did back in like 2016, 2017. But so at this point, what I will say, that's the thing, Jay, that it's that play action. Play action really creates those opportunities to throw the ball, and that's why I want to see him use play action more. But so back to the Saints game. Anyways, the big question for me is, when is the Saints bubble going to pop? Drew Brees is not playing all that well, and I hope that's not blasphemy. I mean, Drew Brees is one of the best players ever to play quarterback, but at his current level, it's not what it was. And if Michael Thomas can't play, there is a very, very, very DG, it doesn't matter if Nagy's a poser and the defense is the reason for the record, but that's a very realistic way to put it. The head coach owns the record. You can't give it to the defensive coordinator. But anyways, so back to it. Unlimited, I think there's way more reason to go after Ryan Pace, and I could talk about that, or if you wanted to. But anyways, like you're saying, Tom, Drew Brees without Thomas is a step down, and if the Bears are able to track Kamara, easier said than done, they could end up fencing in a Saints offense, because if you think about it, eventually a team that isn't that good is going to lose. It's just like the Bears thing, right? At 5-1, eventually they're going to lose. There's a point where they're like, the record has to match the team. And the Saints at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're 5-1, or 6-1 maybe. Like, they've got a really good record, and as they go into Chicago, and you guys tell me how cold it is, it's like 40 degrees in Texas, so I envision it's probably pretty cold in Chicago too. They could very easily find themselves on the wrong end of a trap game as they look past. I think they get Buffalo next. It might even be the Titans, but are they really just 4-2? Dang. But either way, I think that there is a chance, hear me when I say chance, that the offense could squeeze out 17 to 20 points. I mean, the standard offensive game plan, just find your way to get 20-ish points, and the defense could finally have like a real coming out party where they announced that they are one of the league's best defenses, especially against the pass. They're going to need to be able to stop the run, but hopefully this is a gut check moment for Chuck Pagano, and Nagy does exactly what he would normally do. 35 degrees ain't bad, because at some point, I would hope that Drew Brees will march into Chicago and be like, whoa, it's a lot colder than it is in New Orleans. But so as far as handling the Saints D-line, the best way I could say it, Andrew, is if there's one realistic thing I could say about Nagy in this offense, and Jay, you're going to love this because it is positive, this game was awful. I've used the word soulless, I've used the word terrible, undisciplined, whatever you want. You want to lather on the anti-Nagy paint? This is the game to do it. It was a nightmare game for Nagy. But 2 weeks ago, he played the Buccaneers. And 2 weeks ago, he played the third best defense in the NFL. Then he scored 20 points. With a little help from his offense, sure, or defense, but the offense also made plays when they needed to against a dominant defensive line. Like, dominant defensive line. HW, I'm a Bears fan. I just like the Cowboys. But yeah, so Escape from Madhouse, I don't think Drew Brees is going to get surprised by the cold, but at some point you got to think that a guy who generally plays in a dome in warmer temperatures is going to start to flag a little bit when he's in environments that he doesn't like. It's kind of like how I think there are a lot of reports out now that like Derek Carr doesn't like the cold. For instance, plenty of guys have their favorite conditions to play in, and Drew Brees is a gamer. He's going to do his very best. The Saints could destroy us. Don't let me act as if like somehow this is a shoo-in win. I'm being hopeful and positive when I say the Bears might be able to pull a win out, and they could do it in this fashion where they just catch the Saints on the wrong end of a trap game and push their record back to 6-2 at that point. 5-2 doesn't look bad, not at all, but at some point they do have to put up a better fight than they did against the Rams. I think we'd all agree. And if you flipped, what is kind of funny, I'll tell you, is that if you flipped this game and the Tampa game, we're just as mad about the Tampa game and we're happy now. So I do want to be realistic and say this looks like the nightmare that everybody's been warning us about, but at the same time, we beat a very, very good Buccaneers team that's just steamrolling everybody at this point. Like and the Saints are an incredibly well-coached team. This is a huge moment for Nagy to respond. Like, you want to talk about oversimplifying a football game? I'll give you a way to oversimplify it. Sean Payton loves games. He's quoted as saying he loves games where he's missing offensive pieces because he gets to show just how good he is. So Sean Payton's going to bring everything he has against what he knows is a very good Bears defense. On the other hand, Matt Nagy I think he's got a pretty good record about not losing multiple games in a row. At one point there in 2018, I don't think he even did, and he never lost more than one game at a time. So this would be a huge comeback moment for the Bears if they're able to bow up and play against the Saints, because of course everything's spiraling right now. Of course, after one loss, everybody's like, Nagy, you're going to give away play calling, right? Like, I get it. I know how this thing goes, but at the same time, there's another game the next week, 6 days away, and the last time they had 4 days to adjust to the Buccaneers, they were able to put 20 points on the board. This game against the Saints, it's not great on the back end. They should be able to throw if they're able to, especially if they just leverage play action. Like, use 15 play action passes. I don't really care. But yeah, I mean, at this point, like, I just want to see the Bears do what they can to neutralize the Saints pass rush, get the ball downfield. There are going to be opportunities. Foles needs to hit some of them. He can't hit all of them. He is Nick Foles. But yeah, it's weird that way. And like you're saying, Andrew, there's a real argument to be said that, like, as soon as Nagy does something bad, the whole city of Chicago dives on him. But this was a really terrible football game, and I think we'd all agree it was a terrible, terrible game. And we did have opportunities. I mean, it wasn't a no-chance game. It just felt hopeless, and I think we would all agree with that. Anyways, are there any other questions that I can answer before we sign off? Because it is almost the crack of midnight, and I think that... I think we can just about close up. But exactly, Ejo. I think he deserves the hate. I do think he earned this. Like I have criticized Nagy as heavily as possible because I think that it was warranted in this particular game. But I think that there is a shot for the Bears to respond against the Saints. This isn't the team that I thought I saw against the Panthers, that's for sure. They looked dramatically better at that point. Rob, I think he did that because he was, honestly, because he was scared. Like, I don't get the impression that that Nagy, or what is it? Yeah, I don't think Nagy thought they could do anything with 20 seconds. And I don't know if there's anything like wrong with that decision just because they were really playing badly. Let me get the Discord pulled up because in case you're enjoying this and you just never want it to end, and thank you guys so much. 560 concurrent viewers is incredible, by the way. But so let's see. Oh, that's an easy question, Numaz. What is it? Nagy coached the Tampa Bay game really well. He held the team together against Detroit. I mean, that's the best I could say, but I'm amazed they made that comeback at all. He made a great decision, like a great decision to put Foles in Atlanta. I'll give him credit for that one. He did terrible things against Indianapolis, and there's a chance that game was just a half-baked game plan because they were still instituting the Foles offense, but hey, there you go. But so between Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Atlanta, you have 3. And yeah, exactly. Like Nagy outcoached Bruce Arians. That happened. And whether Bruce Arians is a bad coach, that's totally your call. But then against the Carolina Panthers, I would say Nagy was neutral. The offense was about as bad as it was good. But they ended up doing just enough. Either way, they had those timeout fiascos, but they also responded well, put points on the board. I'll call it a wash. And then this one was terrible. So I think that's about as fair of an evaluation as I could give. What do you think? People would say that he almost gave it away. I don't think so. I really thought he was fine. Like, I thought he was aggressive consistently, and he went after, what is it? Yeah, so he was aggressive consistently, he stayed on him, and he believed in his team, and ultimately out-schemed Bruce Arians and an incredibly good defense, and here they are just, like, roaring through everybody. Tampa Bay is an incredibly good football team, and the Bears were able to beat them. I just posted the Discord. Let me know if you can see that link. Just dive in there, have a great time. It's a whole bunch of fans. Again, be respectful, all the usual things you would be here. I don't know, Andrew. I'm gonna try, especially if you ping me. But I spend so much time breaking down film and looking on Twitter that a lot of times it's a community Discord, and I'll be in and out because if I spent all day on Discord, I wouldn't get into the film. But so, back shoulder throws are aggressive. You can say they're predictable, but at the end of the day, your whole goal is to put your best receiver in a one-on-one situation. I'm okay with that. My hope would be that A-Rob would come down with more than them, and that's all right. But yeah, at least that's my take anyways. They were able to play off of a lot of the trends of the Tampa Bay game, and if you don't believe me, I mean, go take a look. Ooh, this one. I haven't actually rewatched this play yet. How good of a break does... Oh, I don't know. It's not a great angle. But yeah. Let me see yeah, okay, so I don't think we should trade for Julio. I don't think the Bears are a receiver away. If anything, they might want a lineman, but like a cheap lineman if possible. Yeah. No, I mean, the Bears pass rush, to be clear, this Bears defense has talent, and they were able to, DG, you can say that, but it happened. This isn't the DeAndre Swift thing. Not to mention, it's a really well defended play. Like, I'll even take you back there. You want to talk about it? We can certainly talk about it. So at this point, I don't really care if Brady had a brain fart on downs, because it's not like he was making, or it's not even about whether he was making good decisions with the ball. It's the fact that the Bears were defending it really well. Like what is it? This is second down. We'll just rip through a couple of these. Why not? But so exactly like you're saying, Kamaro, they need a lead ultimately to make a play. So this one, Gronk drops it. They catch a break there. Sure. But so from there, let's see, I'm just checking. I really think back shoulder balls are fine. Like I totally get what you're saying. Like in this case, but I personally disagree. Which hey, disagreement's allowed. This was a heck of a play. Like I don't care if he thinks it's third or fourth down. I don't know what would have changed in his decision making. He expected his guy to beat DeAndre Houston Carson, and Houston Carson knocked the ball down. That's fine. And thanks so much for subbing, by the way, James. That's really cool. Thank you for that. But so at this point, Tom, it was a good enough offense with surprisingly like solid scheming that got a lot of points that were created off of ground action and hit a lot of the different faults that we ended up finding in Trubisky, and a defense that just dominated. I mean, just dominated. Dylan, we absolutely should be are concerned about the injury report. It's a huge problem. And the Bears very well may go into this game without Cody Whitehair, Allen Robinson, and a host of others, especially if like Mac doesn't play, for instance. But if they go in with enough of their defense, it's just a matter of grinding it out on offense. And so we'll see. HW, I'm going to say something absolutely ridiculous here, right? I'm going to say that if Darnell Mooney can play, the Bears have a shot. It's not a long, or it's a long shot, but it's a shot because Darnell Mooney, it's not necessarily that he's like wide receiver one, but it's more that the Saints corners aren't fabulous. And so I don't think that they have anybody that can just lock down Darnell Mooney. And because of that, I have some faith that they'd be able to make plays even if Robinson wasn't on the field. At that point, Hollywood, I don't know, but I hope it's a lot. Certainly. I think it's a calf injury, DJ Daniels. But so I think, as much as you laugh, Escape, if they did throw or if they laid enough of a foundation such that they could start calling trick plays, it would look better. But so Javon Wims is fine. I mean, he's a 7th round pick that looks like a replacement level receiver. There's nothing wrong with that. He's often brought in as a blocker, like that 4th and 1 play. Ooh, this is a good example of everything. Okay, so let's go 4th and 1. One final breakdown. Okay, and then we'll close up shop because my voice is getting hurt. But hey, I love doing this for y'all. So here we are, right? It's 4th and 1. Bears are lined up in, actually, would you believe it? It's just one tight end. So, Hollywood, he fell apart. But so, like Kyle Long fell apart. So the Bears have lined up. They've got Sam Mustipher, brand new center, lined up right here. And so because of him and Coward, the Bears probably don't want to run the ball right there. But they want to threaten, then they might. And then they're going to pull, I think it's Mooney. I think it's him right there. They're going to pull Mooney over. So that's a potential action. It's not. It's Miller. I don't know why it's not Mooney. Why would that not be Mooney? That should be Mooney. But so, anyways, they pull a receiver over and at least try to threaten to move the box a little bit. But partially because it isn't Mooney, and they do catch the whole box moving, they get technically what they want. It's so easy to say, hey, this play call sucks. But remember, again, this is Sam Mustipher, practice squad backup center. You can't run this ball up the middle, and you'll see at the snap exactly why. They could kick it out to Anthony Miller here, but it looks like the whole defense shifts over. So from there, it's just a matter of hitting your blocks. It's a matter of Javon Wims coming over and sealing this linebacker. Allen Robinson jumping up and sealing this defensive back, and Leno getting his guy. Pitch goes out. Wims loses his. Robinson loses his. And actually, Leno gets his assignment done. Like, that's fine. Alex, it absolutely should have been Mooney. Like, he's the speed threat. It makes so much more sense. Why in the world would you have Anthony Miller potentially hold that ball? It doesn't make any sense. But so, yeah, in my opinion, as much as everybody would say, this is a terrible play call, I would tell you that, in my opinion, it's all right. I mean, it makes sense. You get Cordero Patterson running into here, and you've got, at the time of the snap anyways, let's get to this, you have Javon Wims, who can easily hook over there, Allen Robinson, who can seal that guy, and Charles Leno. You have quite literally avoided the bad part of your run blocking. Like, I totally get this. This play call is just an attempt to leverage the best players that you have on the field, and it totally doesn't work because Javon Wims and Allen Robinson completely blow their assignments. Oh, and by the way, Rashad Coward trips on himself, which is kind of hilarious, but that's its own thing. And you could say, and this is actually fair, the one criticism of this play call is the fact that they didn't pass the ball. Like that they didn't just line up and throw it because they're a throwing team. That you could say, and I'll go, I have no response to that because that's very fair. That you could say they're a better passing team. Why wouldn't they just throw it? But as far as running the ball, they get the line moved. They get a 3-on-3. They just blow it. I mean, sure, the ball's going to Cordero Patterson. Sure. But you're not certain it's going to the right. And if these guys execute their assignments, he's going to get the 1 yard. Like, it's not, or again, it's just a 1 yard play call. And all you're doing is threatening with a bunch of things. I don't know why Darnell Mooney isn't the one coming across the field. That's my big complaint here. But avoiding Mustipher, who gets deleted, if you can tell. Like, he gets moved way back. And that's kind of just like exactly why they didn't want to run it up the gut in the first place. This is as good a running matchup as you could ask for, and they just lose it. And that's becoming my big complaint. It's not that Nagy calls the wrong plays. It's that the guys he puts in position to succeed don't succeed. And to a degree, that's on the coaching. And to a huge degree, that's on Pace. Like, I have a big problem with just how bad like a lot of these players are. Rashad Coward was our 6th interior offensive lineman. Sam Mustipher is our backup center. We didn't have a punt returner in this game. There's a very rational course of action that says, what in the world is Ryan Pace doing? Why is this roster so thin? And I think that there's real rationality to it. We don't have a backup running back. Our backup running back is a kick returner that we're pretending is a running back. And Kanger, in theory, you don't run the play to the right because running the play to the right is most obvious. I'm not trying to pretend that that makes it good. I'm more saying that there are a ton of guys. I could, if you'd like, I could take a couple days and I could go find plays just like this that worked for other teams. It looks stupid because it doesn't work. But if 3 guys, because they get a 3-on-3, that's as good as you can ask for in a 1-on-1 run situation, and they lose. They lose 2 out of the 3, in fact. But yeah, Tariq Cohen's injured, Alex, and it's a huge bummer. Let me see. Wait a minute. What? Or Squad, I'm trying to read what you're saying. I don't think Montgomery's on the field, unless you're talking about Miller. But so, either way, yeah, Cohen's hurt, which is a massive bummer. Dwayne Harris should at least be able to do a little better. I'd love to see a Mario Edwards like revenge game because Mario Edwards has been absolute fire. But yeah, I mean, they ran all on so many second and longs. It was super bad. But yeah, anyways, guys, it's about time that we close things up. My throat is shot. It has been awesome breaking down football with y'all. Please like this if you enjoyed it. Comment or subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment on which team you follow. I know a lot of it's Bears, but it seems like there's a lot more just Bears fans in this, and I love that. I'll do what I can to be more are more all over the place on Discord and a couple other spots. See if I can make some other things happen. But honestly, at this point, it's just on to the Saints game, and it's a matter of seeing if the Bears can respond. And either way, I will be right here next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. to break this down with you. You guys are absolutely awesome. Love doing this. And until next time, folks, thanks so much.